Welcome to the Independent Characters, episode 198. This is Carl.
This is Josh.
And this is Jason.
This is Jody.
What?
You idiots are wearing name tags.
I forgot,
It was Jody's idea.
because it's a live broadcast on Twitch, which, I'll let you in behind the curtain here. We're re-recording the beginning of the show since I forgot to hit the record button. Up to about the hobby progress point. And so re-recording this. So if you watched us on the Twitch stream, this might be a little different than you remember. You're not crazy. You are not having a brain aneurysm.
Parallel universe.
Or are you?
I'm glad I don't have to change cameras now.
You were
this thing worked good though.
I was watching you. You got like all your little commands and you were all over the place over there.
The Stream Deck thing worked good. The next time we do it though, Josh, I think I'm going to have you control like the chat room. Yeah. And then,
but yeah, that's what I was like. Do you need a producer now? And you're like, no, I got this. And they took our jobs.
Yeah, you got fired before you even got officially hired.
Before you got hired.
We're going to offer you the job. You're fired.
So this episode, episode 198, is the Extended Warrior Lodge. For those who aren't familiar with the Warrior Lodge, it's a bit of a moderated discussion. We're going to have 5 questions that we're going to go over of topics that have been out there in the community, or either hot topics or stale topics that we just like to dredge up over and over.
A lot of cool things to talk about recently that have been springing up.
I'm pretty happy with the questions this episode. So I felt like there's sometimes where I'm kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel, maybe hanging out on Daka looking for low hanging fruit.
That's low.
Ooh. Did I just make enemies? I may have made some enemies. I do. I go across. The whole point is I go to different forums, I go to different groups, and I kind of see what people are talking about and see what the subject is. But some of them are harder to look at than others. I'll just say that.
Well, with GW's release schedule, there is no shortage of things to talk about throughout the year. Like I was kind of reflecting on, it almost feels like we have fuel to do more Warrior Lodges. I feel like we do a lot of them, but I'm like, my God, the rate at which things come out and like big important announcements are made is. Especially the end of the year here.
We honestly really don't do a lot of Warrior Lodges. Like I tend to kind of hold off on them because, like, if you go back and look at the schedule, you'll be like, oh, there's actually not that many.
How many a year do you do? 2, 3?
Couple?
2 or 3. Yeah.
Maybe 3 or 4. Maybe.
Right.
Yeah. Because I feel like in some ways personally, like I feel like in some ways it's kind of phoning in an episode in the sense that it doesn't require as much preparation as a lot of our episodes. A lot of our episodes require a lot of research and, we got to play this and we got to do this and see how it is. And we don't have to do any of that for that. So I think it's still a great show and I think it's still a valid show, but I always feel like, did I give it my all, and so.
Yeah, sometimes it's fun just to sit around the campfire, so to speak, and talk about these things, right?
But I think it's also important that discussion's moderated, right? Like it's like, okay, what do you think? What do you think? Let's go back to your point. I think that differentiates it from just a bunch of people sitting around talking about 40K.
Yeah, you could go to your local game store for the other version anytime you want.
Well, how often do I hear people who start a podcast say, well, we talk about 40K all the time, so let's just record it. No, that's not a good show. And I feel that like this is the differentiator there.
Sure,
anyway,
sure.
That's how I take it. Okay. Dan Blount is our Patreon sponsor of the episode. I am having a seizure.
Do you smell burnt toast?
No, I'm good. Okay. Dan Blount is one of our Patreon subscribers. You are the name that we drew to be the
sponsor of the show.
Sponsor of the show. Thank you, Dan.
God. Thank you. Can one of you take this over? Thank you so much,
Josh.
Dan. Really appreciate it. The Patreon is doing wonderful. It's doing great things for us. It's allowing us to do live content like we just did. It's allowing us to fix that live content when we didn't do it right. All those kinds of things. But man, our equipment has really ratcheted up. It's really just
sounds so good.
Night and day difference.
Headphones, comfy chairs, trips to Adepticon.
It's all good.
It's awesome.
There's and giveaways. Because at the end of this episode, we are going to announce from our Patreon subscribers a winner for a Adeptus Sororitas Sisters of Battle Army set. The way that all panned out was I had gone to purchase one for somebody who couldn't couldn't get to one, and they asked me because I had taken a picture at our local
hobby
game store.
champion that you are.
And I don't know about that.
What a champion!
I was dragged into it pretty reluctantly, but I was like, all right, I'll do it. So I picked up one, and then just after that, I saw, he had tried to message me and say, I got one locally, don't get me one. So I was sitting on one. I could return it, but why not give back to the community that has given so much to us?
Yep.
So at the end of the show, we will announce the winner of Sisters of Battle Army set.
Pretty cool.
Fantastic. Yep.
Great set too. Super excited about it.
That range of models, I may just add, good God, that
Stepping it up.
altar, martyr
Dude.
piece.
Dude, I saw that.
Can you imagine when a Golden Demon painter gets their hands on that and
starts changing it, and it's not just painting it as it's, because I'll be honest, I saw that model get released, the altar of whatever it is, Saint somebody. Anyway, I saw it get released, and I looked at it and I thought, oh no, that looks really, really complicated to paint.
that's what makes it cool. Can't be more complicated than painting 14 miles of trim.
Well, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that. But before we talk about that, let's talk 14 miles of trim. Let's talk about our elite choice. So this is the best thing we've seen from the independent characters community in the last few weeks. I'll go ahead and go first. I loved Mark Rayner's Death Guard with their glowing plasma effects. Now, I've been
eyeballing that for a while, by the way.
I have never seen somebody do black Death Guard either. I haven't.
It's usually like that, whatever Legion is with like the black and green.
Yeah.
They usually have the green edition.
Right.
So it's very unique, right?
But this is a very unique take, I think, on the Death Guard. I really love it. But man, where it really pops is that glowing red effect he did with the
he actually used fluorescent paints.
Yeah,
it's incredibly vibrant.
Yeah.
And with the contrast between that and the black, it really pops.
Oh, it looks so good. Yeah. It
Also,
looks so good.
Way to go, Mark, on reining in the OSL. It's very subtle, as
right?
opposed to the
exploding all over the guy's face.
The airbrush on,
I was going to say,
on full
he is
thrust.
vegan, so it's easy for him.
There you go. Oh, the air. I mean, do you guys address that when you're teaching, Justin? The full blast OSL, like I just turned on at high speed, went there. It's OSL.
We definitely do.
That's a beautiful thing.
This is
really well done.
You raise a great point, because that is a very subtle effect. Like you can see it where it's hitting kind of a little bit of the face.
The eye lens is reflecting in there. That's what does it for me.
Yeah. And the corner of the shoulder and then a little bit of the forearm. It's really well done.
Yep.
I would love to see a whole like 2,000 point army painted up in that scheme.
That would look awesome.
And he could do a lot of that similar kind of glowy effects on the Plague Burst crawlers.
It would
and
look
the
so
Terminators.
awesome.
It's funny. I see people see those style of paint jobs, or I hear people rather talk about those style of paint jobs where it's like, oh, he's all black. Oh, he just painted some chipping and then painted that red. That's so easy. The ability to do that and have it balance and it looks cohesive and interesting. It's not just flat. That's the less colors you work with, the harder your life gets.
That's an interesting point.
Try painting a model with 2 different colors of paint only. It's really difficult to get it to be interesting and not just look flat. Well, this is a great demonstration.
Beautifully done, man. And he's also put a demo. I'll provide a link
step by step, right?
Step by step on how he did the glowing effect. So fantastic work. Thank you so much. Jody, who'd you pick?
Alex Barton. He'd been taking a little bit of a break from painting due to real life being mean to him. Sorry about that. So he's gotten back to it, and he posted a picture of his Gene Stealer cultists. He did his Patriarch in the classic purple carapace and I guess kind of bluey purple carapace and then very pinky purple flesh.
Totally nostalgic, man.
Yeah, and it looks great. Also, somebody else who's on the vegan crossfitting program for airbrushing. But he did a great job with it because it doesn't have that that's not a knock in any way. It looks fantastic. But what really caught my eye beyond the like pop of the Patriarch is he has his Keller morph, and his Keller morph is in very kind of westerny, muty brown yellows within his fatigues. But then his flesh is that classic purple on purple, pink and purple really flesh. Yep. But then if you go a step further into his other pictures, when you get down to his neophytes and the guys on motorcycles and such, they're traditional kind of, Caucasian flesh tones. But then they have these yellowy brown fatigues that are very naturalistic looking. So they look very, very human. So that staging of the 3 generations is done really beautifully. So not only command of some really, really vibrant colors with some very muted colors, but also that reinforcing the narrative with his color use is super cool, and just a great example of a modern take on a classic idea for the Gene Stealer cult.
Totally. I just want to like see him do some limousines for this army.
Who wouldn't want limousines?
Me?
It'll never happen.
No.
Have you seen the resin limousines that random Russian company or whatever came out with?
It's just not my thing. I mean, I don't understand why.
What would a 40K
like
car look like?
A limousine.
Why would it look like a limousine? I'll tell you what a 40K car would look like. First of all, it would definitely have skulls on it.
Yes.
And those do.
They do.
All right, I'm sold.
He's easy.
Oh.
You know what I also love about these models? The base rims.
Black.
They're black.
That's the only color you can paint a base rim.
I don't know. I'm just saying.
Victory lap. That's the victory lap. I don't know where I heard that. Whoever that is, it's my favorite thing. It's the last thing.
That's the last thing you do.
The last thing you do is you do your victory lap. Whoop, black around the rim. Whoever said that when I saw it,
you're a black around the rim guy, right?
All the black.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. Me too. The other one I kind of do like is the brown that GW does, like that brown,
like the graveyard earth kind of.
Yeah, I'm okay with that one.
My orcs do have that, and the new ones will be maintaining that.
Yeah, I think that looks pretty good.
Yeah,
ultimately, depending on the base.
We joke about this, of course. Whatever color you want to paint your rim, just do it.
Goblin green, baby.
As long as it's a shade of black.
It's just the Model T approach to basing.
You know what? It's basic black. Goes with everything.
It's true.
Just like a little dress.
Basic black.
A little tiny cocktail dress.
It's the cocktail dress of the miniature. All right. Save us, Justin. Oh, wait. That's the wrong person.
That is the wrong we were on a desert island, and you said Justin.
Justin, what was your elite choice?
I went for Andrew Auberger. I'm probably butchered that last name.
I think you're good.
Andrew Auberger and his completed 11,000 points of NIDS.
Yeah, buddy.
Fantastic looking, cohesive horde. It actually kind of harkened back and gave me a flashback to when I had a good buddy Dave who had a crap ton of bugs that weren't painted, and me and my buddy Marcos, we sat down and over the course of a day, like literally black and red the entire army.
Wow.
Like it was like 4,000 points. We just sat there. We were using like this crappy like latex household paint to dry brush them. And
oh my God.
Like they actually came out, maybe it wasn't house paint. It might've been, I don't know. But we were just like so tired of seeing this army unpainted. And we got the whole thing done in like a day. And he actually ended up giving the army to me. But anyhow, it kind of reminded me of that.
I'm not doing this piece of junk army.
No, I mean, not to say his armies,
painted this?
not as his were amazingly better painted than our latex household tyrannies.
Yeah.
But really cool to see 11,000 points of bugs.
Yeah.
And the best part, I don't know if I believe him, but he said he has a clean slate, which means no backlog of miniatures.
So I cannot imagine.
I can't either.
No, like I would feel weird about this.
Yeah.
I can't. Like, what would you do then?
Yeah.
Like, what would you do? And,
I don't understand.
And to that point, I don't understand.
Inconceivable.
Yeah, what?
To that point, I mean, this goes to the kind of discussion where at work, we're like, oh, if you won the lottery, what would you do? And people are like, oh, I'd still work. I'm like, you guys are insane. Are you kidding me? Yeah, like I have so much hobby stuff I could do. And now you're telling me there's no more? Like, I'd have to start another army. Like, look, there would be...
Well, and I'm sure he is, but that's where he's at with this collection. I find it really interesting that he must really love bugs, that he did 11,000 points
like
of
how
bugs.
Often are you going to play with 11,000?
But I think, as I recall, I'll have to go back and look at the photo. I want to say he had like a bunch of Gene Stealer cult models in there. And
it's a ton of stuff.
About 11,000 points.
Yeah.
About 11,000 points. So what a cool place to be in. I mean,
is it?
I think so.
Nobody knows. Like, Andrew, you have to clue us in. Like,
what is that like?
Yeah, what's your emotional state right now? How are you feeling?
Do you feel hollow inside?
Is it
like
safe?
The Cthulhu ready to fall on Carl's head? Are you dead inside?
It's not gonna fall.
I always worry about that. But okay,
even death can die.
Great job, Andrew. Look forward to seeing your next army.
That was an impressive series of pictures.
Yeah.
Seriously. Josh, how about you?
Yeah, I went with David Moss and his Cultist Gangers and Gribblies. This is a pretty cool project he did, a largely converted project. It was using Dark Elf models as the base of the body for his critters. But he took it in a direction where he can apply these models and take them into Necromunda, into 40K as Chaos Cultists or as a gang or Blackstone Fortress, things like that. And it's just a really cool conversion project that he busted out really quickly. It was a very quick project for him to do. And they look great. He said something, or they were kind of a quick rush job, sloppily speed
did,
paint,
yeah,
but they look
right.
fantastic.
They look fantastic.
They look great, and it's just a really cool concept from conversion to paint job to execution, and having this kind of it's a large batch of variety of things, but now having this kind of cohort of models he can go to and then apply into so many different game systems, I think it's a cool approach. Yeah.
Also, like a big tip of the hat to Games Workshop and like how versatile their kits are, right? That you can take 4 different kits and merge these things together and come up with some truly cool looking things.
Yeah.
What's in this day and age, like so many data sheets for models represent a very specific loadout, and there's not a lot of customization you can do in those, characters and things compared to what you used to. But across model ranges, like there's still so much potential to do cool conversions, even if it's not, a Space Marine character.
Right.
In fact, the more you move away from a Space Marine character, the more conversion potential you get, and cool things like this get to come to life. So,
Yeah, I'm blown away by the breadth and variety of kits he's accessed. I mean, we got Goliath Gangers and Escher Gangers and Arcoflagellants,
Dark Elf Executioners.
And a Caven Rat Ogre. Man, 2 things. One, like, hey, there's always more cultists. You are never wrong building cultists. And this time, I didn't notice this when we looked at this the first time. The dude who's got on his chest, it's like a Voxcaster, but it's a cut down Space Marine backpack. That's like he's cut the orbs off. It's so smart the way he worked that in. Yeah, this stuff's great. Man, it makes me want to play like an Inquisitor style game with these guys. Wouldn't that be fun?
Yeah, we should do some Inquisitor.
That'd be good.
It would be.
Yeah, that was rad. Yeah.
With all the extra time we have floating around right now. Well, look, I've been looking forward to the holidays because things are starting to gel, and we are starting to free up some time that we're going to actually get to play some games. So, but before we go too much into games played and that kind of thing, let's take a short break. We're going to come right back, and we will then hit it off with some workbench. So we will be right back.
Hey, this is Big Nasty B from Life After the Cover Safe, and I'm at a mall talking to strangers about Table War. Table War develops some of the most innovative products for the miniature wargaming and hobby industry.
And I develop pictures.
That's great. They develop things like the Fat Mat.
Who's Matt, and why is he so fat?
Well, first off, Mat is not a person. The Fat Mat is a tabletop gaming surface, and with over 40 different designs, Table War's Fat Mat has become a community standard.
I got a Surface Pro. It's like 10 inches. By the way, I'm meeting my friend Simbon. Do you know what that is?
No, but I do want to tell you about the Table War Tower case line.
Oh man, towers are so huge.
Well, it's not that kind of tower. It's the original modular, all-in-one display storage and transport system for all your tabletop miniatures.
Wow, you're really smart. What's your relationship status?
Well, it's complicated, but you know what isn't complicated?
Chili dogs.
This is true, but also the Macro Mat.
Oh geez, not that guy again.
The Macro Mat is a one-of-a-kind, innovative photography backdrop, perfect for collectibles, hobby miniatures, and small works of art. Its durability, portability, and functionality in one inexpensive product.
I wasn't paying attention to what you just said, but do you validate parking?
No, I do not. But if you want more information, head over to tablewar.com and check them out.
Table War!
All right, we're back. Let's kick it off with a little bit of hobby progress. I'll go first, as I should.
Yeah.
You've been a busy man.
So for those who have listened for the last year or so, I've been talking about doing Black Legion. I'm actually doing Black Legion. It is a significant amount of gold trim that I have been painting. I have completed everything but about 2 of my infantry models at this point with the first layer of gold trim. Now I still need to do like the purple Druchii Violet wash on it, and then the Scale 75 Elf Gold. I'm using the Scale 75 Negro Gold on those on the trim there, and man, you guys, that you were right.
Are you going to shoot some shadows in too with into the metallics? With some artist inks.
Hadn't planned on it, no, but I could, I suppose.
Some purple in there would look good for the blacks, the shadows in the blacks, but also on the gold. It could look really.
That's not going to be covered
umbers.
by the wash.
Well, you could do like both. So like in the darkest kind of recesses.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
You can shoot
shadows in there.
Yep.
Well,
Especially on infantry, you could do it. It'd be great.
Yeah.
But on the larger models, I'm
definitely going to want to do it on like the Chaos Knight and the War Dogs.
And this is also chaos warped metal too, so you can experiment with kind of shooting a little bit of nuances of greens and
I like the stuff that Caleb does on the like he did on my Titan.
Yep.
Like it's freaking incredible. That's I hadn't even
adds a lot of interest.
I hadn't even considered that to this point, and thanks for adding multiple more steps that I need to do.
You're welcome. Oh, and did you hear the points dropped for chaos units? So you have to paint about 30 more.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
So, I gained back about 200 points. Boy, I'd really like to go back to power level, I tell you. And yes,
you still can.
I still can. Yes.
God, I had fun playing with it. Just
love
last week.
it. I love it. And here's the only disadvantage for me for power level is that you're just not getting to take advantage of the things they have learned and adjusted for the points. And I sat with.
Leave me alone. Justin's bullying.
I sat with I'm fine. If you want to play power level, I'll play power level. I don't really care. But I sat with Robin Credis for like an hour and a half at Warhammer World one day, and he had told me, "Oh yeah, this is the equation and how you get to this." And I'm like, "Oh, cool." And I wish I'd written it down because I would go back.
Pen.
It would have been nice. Would have been nice. I was really hoping they were going to address that in the new chapter approved.
Of actually just literally giving you the formula they use kind of
thing?
thing?
When I was out there talking to him, I asked him, I said, when are you guys going to address this? And he said, in our infinite wisdom, we put the power level right on the front of every character data sheet. And I said, I got to tell you at this point, Robin, you just give us a list of every model and every unit and tell us the power level. Like we'll take it. That's fine. I don't care that it's on the front of the sheet, just like points, address it. But
hopefully the next Munitorum field manual will have this.
I would hope so. So anyway, my point being, I did gain about 200 more points because I made a 2,000 point level or point. Geez, you guys are messing me up. 2,000 point list, rather than paint a bunch more models I have to do more edging on. I figure, I'll just put Abaddon in this list since he dropped in points too, and he fits in there.
Well, that's a 10%
nice
point drop in your build it, because it was a 2,000 point list, right? So that's significant.
It's huge. Yeah. It's a great time to be a 40K player, but a chaos player.
Yeah, it's going to get better too, I think.
I think so.
Yeah. So anyway, that's me. I mean, I've gotten a lot of that done. I will say I did play around with the contrast paints as well. I played around with, I was hoping to cheat kind of the tabards and robes and everything. I want to do reds. So I painted on the underlying cream or whatever color it is
bright base coat
and then tried the red on a test model, and I wasn't really happy with the results on such a large piece.
Just coffee stained city.
It just didn't work for me the way I wanted it to work. So I'm just going to go back to my original method of doing that, which is fine. But I did use
snakebite leather
on a holster and belt, and man, that works exactly as advertised.
Yeah, and I think that's the deal with contrast is there are certain colors, and I would say this of any paint range, some colors are better than others. Every range has its one or two colors that you're like, wow, that's phenomenal, and the rest are fine or not fine, right? And contrast is no different. There are some colors like snakebite leather that is phenomenal. One of the things I've noticed that of those very like, wow, that color is something else, is you notice there's other kind of hues built into it or other tones built into it. Yeah. And snakebite's it's brown. It's undeniably brown, but it's got a lot of yellow in the background and oranges that give it that kind of life, that visual interest, like you were talking about with the metallics, Justin. It's built into that. Yeah. But if you are used to the layering method of painting, the kind of classic Games Workshop method, and I'm a big fan of contrast paints, But I will tell you, if you use them as indicated by GW of just one thick coat, you're probably going to be disappointed.
You're not going to get the results you're looking
No.
for. I have seen people. There's a guy I just saw recently that was painting some ultramarines, all with contrast, and he's got it dialed in.
And there is a
but
set
there's
to
a
it.
skill to it.
Right.
It's not just I'm just going to slop this on. There is a definite skill to getting it to do what you want it to do.
Yeah, it's like any tool. You have to learn how to work with it better.
Yeah. So now that we've re-recorded the whole beginning of the show, let's hear a little bit about your hobby progress, Jody.
Okay. An army. And
Would have been great if I was recording the show.
It would have been. Yeah.
We'll come back to that. We'll fix it in post.
Okay.
Keep going.
All right. So I assembled and got that base coat and first kind of layer of gray highlights over the black prime coat on the Chaos Furies. Really excited to add those to my Chaos Demon army because it's the only generic demon other than Be'lakor.
Yeah.
Those new models are fantastic.
They're so good.
So needed.
Love those sculpts.
So one small downside is you can buy the Chaos Furies sort of separately for Warcry in their own box. You don't have to get them in the main giant box. You get 6 of them, which is frustrating because Furies are purchased in units of 10.
Oh, really?
Which is
10 minimum?
I believe it might be 5, but I think it's 10.
That's kind of a weird number, huh?
And then you also get 3 of the, as I like to call them, Zerkies. The Warcry like
things.
bird, bird,
Yeah.
turkey, frill necks,
Zerkies.
Zerkies. They're corn and turkeys and Zinj turkeys. They're
Zerkies
Zerkies.
works, yep.
Yeah, they're horrible. I did a swap to get mine painted. I had they wouldn't have got done. Somebody's like, "You don't mind me painting your stuff?" And I was like, "No, literally, they'll never get done unless I have somebody else do them." So I traded some models. Thanks, Chris. You're the man. But anyway, got those Chaos Furies underway. Really excited to get them added. And then very randomly over the Thanksgiving break, I started painting some Iron Warriors, and I've turned out about a squad worth in the last week.
What
promoted that?
Right. What provoked you to suddenly say, I'm going to do Iron Warriors? And by the way, they look incredible.
Yeah.
Hey, so what promoted it and why they look, I'm really happy with how they're turning out is Darren Latham's tutorial videos on YouTube. He
really?
passed 30,000 subscribers on his Instagram account. And if you're not following Darren Latham,
What are you doing? Yeah, he's a champion.
And if you don't know who he is,
Google it.
Google it. No, he is a long time top tier heavy metal painter. If you ever get the chance or you've been watching long enough, every once in a while you get to see those guys' personal collection items, the guys who paint for heavy metal, or you see the stuff they put into like Slayer, Sword, or the Golden Demon open categories. The degree to which they are all just top tier artists, you don't get a sense of that when they're churning out, photograph for the company level miniatures, which are very nicely painted, but
Their display pieces are
their individual
I gotta
personal
tell you,
projects are incredible.
Those models that they paint for the photographs in White Dwarf and to represent the product and such, you actually do not see the detail level in those pictures that they show.
Right.
When you go to Warhammer World, like for example, take that Dark Angels flyer. You see the picture in the magazine, like, oh, that looks really good. And then when you go see it in person, like the wings look like marble. Like there's this really light effect on it that they've done that just doesn't get caught.
I remember seeing the Wood Elf army in the display cases when I was over there and just blown away.
It's incredible.
I mean, it's amazing. But
So Darren Latham has long been one of, and now he's a miniature designer, unless I'm mistaken, for the company.
He is, yeah.
But what he does on his YouTube videos is basically takes the GW method of layering, their classic layering method, but then he takes it to a masterclass level. And he has videos on things like painting faces. He recently did painting female faces with a Sororitas model, which looks really cool, where he gets into like, what are some of those differences? But I mean, that's a 40-minute video and he paints a face,
yeah.
And there's a cutaway. There's cutaways to like
speed
up things. Like, so we're at a masterclass level. But one of the things he did was he figured, well, I passed 30,000 subscribers on Instagram. So he said, well, I'm going to do a tutorial. And then the community kind of told him, hey, this is what you should do. And they said, do something 30K, which there's a certain amount of sense there. He's like, well, cool. I'll do a 30K Marine in 30 minutes. And so he does this 30-minute paint job on an Iron Warrior. And I was like, that looks dope.
It was fun to watch, yeah.
And then I realized, I was like, I can do that. I mean, it might not turn out like his, but I mean, I can get pretty close to that. It's pretty straightforward stuff he's doing. And I'd had those Chaos Warriors from when we did our Heroes of the Dark Gods or whatever,
Oh,
or
right,
Chaos
right,
Heroes episode, and I was all fired up to do Red Corsairs.
Right.
And I just stalled out on those because of the trim, funny enough. So I am very impressed with your gold trim all over the place. And so I just grabbed one and blasted it with some lead belcher from Citadel Air, which is what he did, and just kind of followed his steps. And I don't know, about an hour later, had a dude done for one of the newer Chaos Marines and was really happy with it.
Hazard stripes.
With hazard stripes.
Yeah.
Looking good.
Man, a little battle damage hides a lot of wavy line work.
Sure does.
Sure does. Well, that's what I'm hoping the oil wash does for my, because there's parts where, you know, near the edge of the trim, maybe the gold spilled over just a little bit. I'm like, oh, you know, and you're not going to see it in a big scale, but I think the oil wash,
It should shade that perfectly.
Yeah.
It's really in the recess.
it is.
So one of the things I'm doing similar to that, and you were talking about contrast paints, is to do the gold trim that's all over, well, every Chaos Marine seemingly, but the Iron Warriors have it as well.
Yeah.
I'm actually using, I think it's called Nazdreg yellow. It's the kind of dirty yellow. They have a really bright, vibrant yellow contrast and then a kind of dirty orky.
Yeah.
I've just been putting that straight over the silver. I'll highlight the silver a little bit, but then put that straight over in a really heavy coat. Yeah, and it's just a yellow dirty filter.
Cool.
And it for Iron Warriors, it looks grungy and dirty. And then I'll put a little bit of a bright silver, like a mithril or whatever the current version of that is.
Ooh, mithril, you brought it back.
Yeah. Whatever the lightest silver is. I actually have been using Army Painter silvers. They work really well too. And mixing a little bit of that in with the contrast, and that gets me my gold highlight. Yeah, so it was just very random, and I've been enjoying the heck out of it, and I am totally stumped on what to do on the bases. I asked,
Are you just making this as a kill team or something? Or
yeah.
sure,
Yes.
you're just painting to paint.
I do want a Chaos Marine kill team. That is perfect. Like, definitely wanted that for a while. Picked up, we split the latest starter Shadow Spear box, and I have the Chaos stuff. And what was funny about this whole thing was then reading about Iron Warriors. They meet all the criteria of what I like about Chaos Marines, and that I like the demonic blending with dudes, and they're all about it. And somehow they just missed it. But yeah, I'm stumped on basing because Colin was like, I reached out to Colin, he's like, do it in a warm color. I'm like, and he's like, a warm color. So snow then, right? And he's like, as long as it's warm. I was like, thanks for all the help, buddy. Warm snow. Yellow snow. There it is, white base with more contrast yellow on it. Done. Sold. Anyway, I see people
Space
doing
Wolves been marking their territory.
There it is. That's the narrative. I've got it now. Anyway, because my chaos stuff's on like gray, dark bases because all my chaos demons are really vibrant.
Yeah.
So I put them on. It wouldn't look very good with these dark guys. So I don't know. To be continued. But yeah, random and really fun for now. And then I did get my airbrush back. So maybe Titans. Who knows?
No, maybe.
Yeah, well, what are you doing?
Lots of Titans.
Let's go ahead and jump over to Josh, the real Josh.
Okay, so speaking of Titans, this section of Hobby Progress is brought to you by Specialist Games because that's what I've been doing.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Two quick acquisitions. The Questoris Knight kit that came out for Adeptus Titanicus I picked up, so I can now add the rocket pods and additional melee weapons to my Questoris Knights, which are the standard issue knights. The latest Warlord Carapace weapons also came out, so I got the paired Gatling blasters for the top of the Warlord. So now I'll have kind of a long range Warlord and then a up close in your face Warlord that just volume of fire.
Is that the Gatling blaster? Is the up close or is that long?
It's short range,
but so many dice.
So it's 24 inches, but I think each one is five dice. So it'll be 10 dice total just out of that one weapon, and then with these two arms, they're also high volume. So that one Warlord's going to put out roughly 22 shots or so. Good for shield stripping, but also can get some punch down after another Titan gets hurt.
Sweet.
So on the building side, went back to my Delac gang and built 5 more specialists for it. These are kind of special weapons that I'm anticipating having more weapons added to the gang as I play through a campaign. So it's like I've got a guy with a flamer, a guy with a web gun, a guy with a bolter, just kind of weapons that you don't start with, but you can acquire down the road. So now I just have more guys to add to that. And the one cool thing that I enjoyed doing was the Spiker, which is the Delac Psyker. So I
didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah. They're unsanctioned Psykers, but Delac in the Necromunda world has allegedly some kind of deal with Lord Helmvar there that they're actually allowed to create their own psychics, so they're not necessarily born. They're more of a genetic manipulation.
So cool.
Kind of vat-grown psychers, and they're like super freaky with the giant heads and floating. So
I have totally missed this. That's okay.
Yeah,
I'm gonna unmiss that.
It's pretty rad. So that was fun. A really fun conversion to build up. I also built up my Lancers for Adeptus Titanicus, so they're the fast knights, fast punchy close combat knights. And I've been doing a bunch of the Warlayer, whatever the latest Zone 4 printing for printing up a Necromunda table. So my
That's what I need to start getting.
My
goal
for that is a 3x3 table.
I just ordered a bunch more spools.
Oh yeah.
So that's what I need to be printing.
Yes.
I was starting to print out more towers and stuff, but now I'm like, oh right,
Nope.
I should be printing that.
Is the Warlayer the squares and then you can assemble whatever you want?
It's totally modular. So there's connection posts and there's 3 different lengths of wall segments.
Yep.
And then you can you can print however long those sections you
And then
want,
glue
connect
them
them however
together.
you want.
Yeah.
You can glue them together. There's doors that you can actually have, like the doors actually open.
And they really took a lot of inspiration from the old
Yeah.
Necromunda looking.
It's a really cool set. And so
you guys should print that up and we could do like a paint day on it. Just knock it out.
I've got about I don't know 2 square feet of it printed so far, but I mean a
So
3x3 board's 9 square feet. So I still have a long way to go.
The other thing I forgot to mention was Aaron bought the new Necromunda set,
Oh yeah,
but he didn't want the Corpse Grinder cult guys, so he gave them to me.
they're pretty awesome.
They are amazing,
Pretty awesome.
cool
They
looking.
are brutal in combat.
And Brian Harvey, even as we're speaking, is painting my Zomortalis terrain.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I've been trying to convince Josh over here that rather than doing Adeptus Titanicus campaign, because one person here doesn't have
Other
their
Josh.
stuff painted.
Well, two
It's
Anybody
not-
else
not-
hear the train and or bus coming through right over me again?
Not, to be fair, it's not just you. Like the real Josh said, you know, I have a set, but if I wanted to grow it, I need to add more things. We only have like 3 people who are really, really at the point where they could do the campaign at this point, and there's more people interested. So I think that we're better off doing a Necromunda campaign right now, which is what I'm trying to convince real Josh of, so that we can do that.
You've convinced me.
And
Adeptus Titanicus campaign is absolutely happening next year, but I think we
we've
kick
got-
it off with a
yeah.
Necromunda campaign.
and we'll have all that cool Zomortalis
And we'll let
terrain,
Doug run
and
it.
we'll let Doug run it.
Yeah, perfect.
Everything about this is good. Hey, do you want to talk about Adeptus Titanicus some more?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Do you see my list? Do you see how much more I
Yeah,
have on there?
keep going.
But on the Lancers, the Lancer from Forge World is significantly larger than a regular plastic knight.
It's taller.
Is it the same for
Yes.
Titanicus?
It's larger
Scale-
base and significantly taller. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
It is a great representation of that model.
It's a beautiful model. They're really easy to put together. I actually prefer this kit to the Questoris kit, and I think I'm going to prefer it in gameplay as well. So Lancers are a pretty neat way to go with the game. They're faster. They're a little bit more durable. They're a little bit more expensive in points, but they're awesome and they look cool.
Right on.
Sweet.
Yeah. So on the painting side, I been actually putting paint on my Delot gang as well, which I built up a couple months ago. And I'm actually hopefully joining another Necromunda campaign starting next weekend. So my goal is to have the first 10 guys, the kind of the base level gang done.
I feel like Josh is really our specialist games guy.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if you read my profile on the website, I think that pretty much says that.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. That's what I love skirmish games. So I like a little bit more depth to my game, and at the skirmish level, it really hits me in the happy place.
Okay.
Yep. So all the weapons for my Titans, I've also gone back and finishing. These are all the Forge World releases. Wow. That have come out after the fact. So the Vulcan Mega Bolter for the Reaver, the Vortex Missile for the Reaver Carapace, the Macro Gatling Blasters. I got 2 of those painted up. Those are the just high strength, high rate of fire.
Yeah.
Or medium strength for the Warlord Titans. So they're just giant macro shells. And AT, everything is now painted. So my second Warlord was the big thing for that. So I did finish painting my second
Do you feel like you need to buy more AT stuff now?
No,
Do you
I'm
feel hollow
actually-
inside?
He
hollow
just
inside,
did
yeah.
his purchases.
I'm good. Yeah.
Hey, did you do all your? I haven't seen your stuff since you did. Did the oil washes happen?
So I wanted to get the second Warlord painted, which is now complete to the point where it's ready for the oil wash. So now there's like two weapon arms I need to get to that painted spot, and then I'm going to varnish and oil wash the entire army. And I'm working on getting my Legio decals printed out. So I've been doing the design in Illustrator to get that, because there's not an official.
I thought you wanted to do the oil wash after the decals.
I do it before.
Oh, okay.
So because the oil can interact with the decals. I know Doug does his afterwards.
Yeah, Colin was saying do it after too.
It depends.
Okay.
Once it's varnished,
I
one way or the
once
other,
you varnish it, not an issue.
If it's if you varnish it, you can do the decals and then oil wash over that, but it can interact with the edges of the decal depending. What I've done with my my Sharkadons was varnished them, oil washed them, and if there's an issue, because you need a pretty clean application to put the decal on there, you can varnish again, and just a really light varnish where you're going to hit that decal specifically.
Gotcha. Okay.
But I also, those ones I just put directly on the oil wash, and it was totally fine on those spots because it was still varnished.
Okay.
Are you going to be printing out your own transfers, or are you sending the file out? And
I'm gonna have Fallout do these ones. I tried my hand at print your own, and the decal paper for that, it's just too thick. So it works well. Like I got it to stick well. You have to varnish after you print it so it doesn't bleed off the paper. And I tried this with my kill team, my Primaris kill team, and the decals are just too thick. So if you try to curve them over anything, like you just get that edge. Even with microset, microsole, it doesn't lay as flat as it. You can't get that painted on look.
Good to know.
So I'm gonna order those up.
And you read something?
And I read Hell's Reach. Which,
finally?
Yeah, I finally got around to that one.
What was your impression?
It was a slow start. Like the first 3 chapters or so, I'd say, were hard to get into. But then once Grimaldus stopped being kind of whiny and accepted his fate, like it got really interesting. And of course, having the Imperator Titan in there was neat, and got that Titan fix for me. But yeah, it's a really good book, and I enjoyed it quite a bit once I kind of got going
into
with
it. Yeah. All right. Cool.
Yeah.
Everybody kind of likes that book.
Yeah. No, it's good, and I've been trying just to catch up on the lore of 40K, because all the Black Library books that I've read in the last 5 years have all been 30K books. So just trying to really jump into
get caught up.
Get caught up. Yep. A lot's happened.
What about you, Justin?
Well, I was gonna say, you guys also, as hobby progress, you also acquired some UHU glue.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
Got to smile like toothpaste.
Yeah. Don't use that as toothpaste.
Don't use it as toothpaste. Yeah.
I thought it was Preparation H. Preparation
Definitely
UHU.
don't. Yeah, don't. That's the noise you would make if you used it that way.
Might be good for waxing.
Oh God.
I'll let you know.
Yeah, please do. So I've been slammed with work. I haven't really managed to get a whole lot done, but I did break down and purchase the half of the Blood of the Phoenix set on eBay. So it was like $100 or something.
Nice.
I just got the whole Eldar half, because I need more Hellions and Venoms and Scourges.
Came with Incubi though, right?
And Incubi and
those
Drazhar.
plastic
Yeah,
Incubi
the only reason I
models.
bought it was for Incubi and
I love those
Drazhar.
models so much.
And I was looking at buying them separately through eBay, and I was like, this will be like $80 for the Incubi and Drazhar. For another $20, I can get more stuff.
Just find somebody selling the other
So
half.
let's do that. Yeah. So I bought that. Super excited. May or may not be painting some of those for Golden Demon. And other than that, lots of Corsairs. So I did a live stream on the community page.
I saw that.
Which was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was fun.
Sat there with 2 trays full of Eldars, and just got a bunch of work done on them. Working my way up through the purples. But with Golden Demon looming, I'll probably put a little bit more work into them just so I can start playing some games with them, and then kind of put the brakes on that, and then pretty much just focus on the Golden Demon projects. I'm aiming for 3 entries.
Nice.
So.
Do you know which categories
by Golden Demon at Adepticon?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Do you know which categories yet you're eyeballing?
I do. Yeah. Cool. So I've already started working on 40K single, and I'm going to go for 40K single, AOS single, and a 40K squad.
Sweet, man. I can't wait to see what you do, man. I'm super excited for you.
So am I.
It'll
nice.
AOS, just real quick. You saw the Slaves of Darkness stuff drop today.
Oh,
right?
I did. So good.
Those
has to
models are amazing.
Yeah. I'll let you know I ordered them.
Oh,
Did you really? Nice.
So stupid. So stupid.
I'm an idiot, man.
Well, I have that army.
Yeah.
And I do. It would be cool to sprinkle in some more of those guys, but I don't know. I want to see the new codex. I mean, Aaron Dembski-Bowden wrote like 4 stories in it. So
Nice.
that'll be cool.
Well, looking at the community feedback or like the post they made about it, like talking about all the different ways you can run it, looks so fun.
And I love that dude on the riding that
Serpent
dragon looking
thing.
creature.
Is that not the best? I know this is a 40K podcast, but that get starting set,
so good?
like everything's brand new.
It's so good.
You know, like a lot of the get startings, it's kind of like, oh, a Falcon.
I think they're trying to hit the Christmas rush for that.
Oh yeah, those things are going to sell.
So along that, you open this door. The fact that the war cry factions are now cult troops within the slaves. Oh my!
So good.
I was like,
Smart.
oh my god, that's the best thing ever.
But it's super smart, right? I mean,
It
just
is.
from a financial standpoint, from a company standpoint, why would you not
Right.
leverage that thing? But
they haven't done that in the
thematically.
past.
No, but thematically, it's fantastic.
Right. So now here's my cult specific troops relevant to different god allegiances, sort of. So if we may, that's a lovely segue. I've been actually playing some more Cry.
Oh, have you?
Yeah.
I knew you played a couple games.
Yeah, I played again this week with Cliff. We played.
Are we just
a bit
leaping
more.
right into games played?
Why not?
All right. Okay. Let's
do
go.
it.
Let's Jody with games played because I have none. Let's just start there. I've been just doing trim.
Get all the trim you can, Carl.
Stop.
Done. Get it
Stop.
all done. Okay, I was just get it done. That's good. I'm impressed, man. I
leaving
wish
it
I could
alone.
do it.
Being
All
good.
right,
It
War
wasn't.
Cry.
It wasn't Justin. That's what I'm surprised by.
War Cry.
Thank you,
I
Justin.
don't know. I'm just anyway. Jeez,
War Cry.
War Cry is super fun, and I did get to play a couple games of it. It's as advertised. You're gonna set it up. You're gonna play some games, have a good time, pack it up, put it away. If you're looking for the depth and detail of Necromunda, it ain't that game at all.
Yeah.
even vaguely. But if you want something lighter that is a skirmish game and is rules light and is going to produce really crazy cinematic stuff happening, it is that game. And the super random scenarios, so far we've had, of the 5-6 games I've played now, we've had multiple times where you flop out the scenario cards and you're like, oh, this is going to be totally one-sided, and then it ends up playing out the complete reverse of what you expect.
Interesting.
So they are a little one-sided at times because random on top of random on top of random, but they're always competitive and fun. And at the end of it, when you're like, oh, well, that was kind of one-sided and weird, we're out 30 minutes. You want to do it again? Yes.
Cool.
Rack it and go.
Yeah.
So we're actually, there's a group of us over there, Matt and Cliff and I are all kind of curious about like, so this campaign thing, because you don't, when you play a campaign in it, you don't have to all be, you all have to be playing a campaign, but it doesn't matter.
You kind of play for yourself.
You do your own thing, which is rad.
Cool.
In other news, I played yet more Blitz Bowl. We did a little one-day tournament. I would love for the three of you guys to make it to the next one.
Need to.
Keep trying.
I know. And there will be more.
I was so sad.
I'm sorry.
This time of year, yeah, it's a little
Oh,
rough.
what elves are ready to go?
Yeah, they are. It's cool. Oh, they look so good too. But I did play some proper 40K.
Oh, thank God.
Wait, come on, man. Yeah.
Wait, real quick to interrupt you. On Warcry, how tall is your high horse these days? Because I did see that they are coming out with all the factions are joining into Warcry.
By the high horse, you're referring to the fact that Jody is like
The snob level?
You must
yeah,
play
that's right.
with these
So I-
models. You cannot play.
I'm asking because I saw Sylvaneth are now joining Warcry,
Nice.
which would actually get me to play it because so far the factions out there just don't do it for me for a game that is going to be just super casual beer and pretzel, where I clearly like more crunchy games like Necromunda and Adeptus Titanicus.
I'm with you, bud. Let's do it.
But with my existing stuff, I'm like, but
Right.
So my question is how high up is that?
So Jody,
Exactly.
first explain your predilection
my horde.
towards,
Okay. So when Warcry came out, I can hear the hate mail churn coming.
Jeff Hummel's already. I can hear him writing.
Yeah, I can hear Jeff, you're amazing. I can't wait to see you. Geez, I got all the bus tickets today. We're not even this far into this. All right. So when Warcry came out, they did this really cool, smart marketing thing where they released a card pack because your faction has its own unique cards to track your warriors. And they released a card pack for pretty much most of the existing factions within Age of Sigmar. And that you just buy this pack of cards, take your models, get your Warcry rulebook, and you can play.
Did not know those cards were limited editions either.
They're reprinting.
Oh, thank God.
And a new batch just released as
cool.
well. And initially I was very, very resistant to that. I was not interested. There's been so many instances of the past where GW has rolled out a game and then they'll do some like, oh, plus there's this other thing. Mordheim is my favorite example of this. Mordheim came out long ago. Here's this rule book. There's a lot of ways and different warbands to play with. And people are like, well, what about elves? What about dwarves? And what about, which weren't really part of the narrative at all within Mordheim. It didn't make a ton of sense why they would be there, but they released rules because people wanted them, and they were terrible. They were so imbalanced compared to the other factions. Okay. When you started playing those other ones, the game basically fell apart. Different people's mileage may vary, and this is my opinion. And as Justin, you nailed it. Who cares? This is just me, right? Like anybody else, go nuts. One of the guys way up in Reading is loving Warcry, and they're only playing these card packs, and they're loving it and having a great time with them. Rad. You do you. For me, I wanted to play Chaos Warbands versus Chaos Warbands. I think that narrative is freaking awesome. And I wasn't very interested. Some of the warbands that are AOS factions, it makes a little more sense than others to me. Mm-hmm. I still have a very limited interest in playing Warcry versus it would be like playing Necromunda, but using Space Marines all the time. Mm-hmm. That's so not right. I'm like, so you're not really playing Necromunda.
Well, could you not, forge a different narrative?
You can.
You can use those rules to have battles for a different purpose.
Absolutely. 100%.
Okay. They're each coming out with their own quests, like their own quest campaigns and multiples. So
okay.
Yeah. So so
it's expanding beyond.
They have their lore reason for being there and participating. I was just curious to see how that clashes with Jody's worldview.
So, and one of thanks for that again. Nicely done. One of Jeff's arguments, and it's valid. Like I think he makes valid points. This is just purely my high horse game snob moment. Is that stuff's in the original rulebook. Like the core rulebook has Stormcast stuff and the other factions are represented right there in the book. It's not some like afterthought thing. It's just, for me, that's less of the narrative I want to forge.
I gotcha. It's fair enough.
But, if one of my friends showed up and was like, hey, I've got these Sylvaneth, let's give it a shot. Cool, let's give it a shot. It's my investment of time. The first time you set up Warcry to play it, it takes a while. But then once you're up and running, you could play 4 or 5 games in a couple hours. Okay. And some of the factions, if Adon were to show up with his Daughters of Cain, I mean why wouldn't they be in the 8 points? Like that makes sense that they'd be there. Some of the factions, it starts making less and less and less sense why this warband would be. But to each their own, forge their own narrative.
Okay, so let's go back to your 40K games. It's just an interesting sidetrack there. Yeah.
Still there, but again, it's purely that's not the narrative I want to forge. So, so Brian and I got together, and which is in and of itself a minor holiday miracle that somehow, even though we live relatively close to each other, just our schedules hate each other. We played 2 smaller games with power level of
thumbs up
25 power level versus, and then another second game of 50 power level. For the 25 power level, I played my Slanesh demons. He used the Drukari Coven, the Prophets of Flesh, which have the 4 up invul across the army, and then a lot of them end up with also Feel No Pain on top of that. Okay, I was looking for the side nod. Thank you, Justin. I foolishly pushed forward because I was like, first time. And I actually hadn't played my Slanesh Demons in a really long time. So I ran my Slanesh Demons forward because they're really fast and they just got shredded. Brian rolled in a 25 power level game. If one person has a couple big good rolls,
it's a small game.
Yeah, it ends pretty quick. So it was like, I attack you. And I mean, I think we were at the end of turn 2 and he removed his first model. So it was that kind of situation, which isn't so good. So that was cool. It was an interesting,
beautiful games, by the way.
Thanks.
Those photographs.
Yeah.
Splendid.
And if you do go back and look at it, make sure you look at our deluxe carrying systems. I had to laugh at that.
The Tupperware just thrown in,
just boxes, just stuff with boxes, and they're piled in. The 50 power level game though was much more competitive. I did a combination of Slanesh and Tzeentch demons, so a little more balanced force where I had the assault force of Slanesh,
a little more smite,
a little, well, very little. I think, and because actually the Psychers in there was the Keeper of Secrets, so I got to run my Keeper of Secrets.
Nice. Which points drops on him too.
Great for people who play points. And this time comedically, so that I would have a chance, because Brian and I have played a series now of not competitive. And I don't mean not competitive as in a competitive mindset. I mean, as in after turn one, it was like, well, looks like we know how this is going. Probably the last 3 or 4 games he and I have played have been like, woof, that was a whooping. Well, racket. Like, I mean, really bad. This 50 power level game did go back and forth, but it was because Brian did the like build your own coven thing of picking traits, and then forgot to use them through most of the game. So
Getting older is hard.
That's the worst.
Things went much better for me because of that. But it was cool watching at that power level a greater demon really feel like a greater demon, that he was the center of attention and was, man. And then the Keeper of Secrets versus individual character models is a massive pain in the butt.
Snip, snip.
No, it's the -1s all over the place. He starts making them like -2 to hit by just going tap, tap, tap. And then he has an aura in close combat and then his sword. And so it's like, oh, you're -2 to hit me. You're -2 to hit me. You're -2 to hit me.
Musk.
And then next turn, okay, I'll drop this many attacks into you and then 1 into you and 1 into you.
Right.
Okay, I hit you guys because, I'm going to hit. And then do it again and do it again and do it again. And it just becomes this grind of everything getting pulled into him.
Right.
Which is super thematic and rad.
Speaking of that theme, and we had talked before about Kill Team like versus a Dreadnought or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw, but I talked about it on our Patreon episode. But in the latest White Dwarf, they have rules for the Dreaded Ambul, so that you're like Josh and I are playing a game, and then the Dreaded Ambul just shows up.
Oh, nice.
Oh, I know.
And
That's awesome.
There's rules for how it moves and attacks things and everything, so it could just totally disrupt the game.
Right out
I
of
love
Necromunda.
stuff like that.
That's
I
fun.
love
My
stuff.
understanding is that's going to be also, so I didn't know it was actually in the new White Dwarf, but I knew it was going to be in the either upcoming or just released Killzone compendium they're dropping from the 2019. There's a Killzone.
Oh yeah,
compendium.
the annual. Or
annual,
whatever,
right? Yeah, I was
Something
super
else we had
excited to
talked
see that.
about
Yep.
having
Super
them do,
excited.
and yeah.
Yeah, so that was me. A couple small scale games, tried out some really interesting missions. One of the ones we played, you like had to switch sides, but then you scored additional points by killing the thing on the opposite side of the board. And it was some really interesting missions for small scale games. It was a lot of fun. So it was good to get back on the table. What about you guys?
So Justin,
No games. Work's been killing me. I've just been doing a lot of list building, a lot of kind of theory hammering with the new Blood of the Phoenix stuff. Phoenix Rising.
Phoenix
The
Rising.
new Eldar stuff.
Okay.
And having fun with that. A lot of fun.
Psychic,
Psych-
not Psychic Awakening, Phoenix, right? The
new Eldar
the first book.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
This Monday, though, I'm playing in 2 days
Yeah,
Nice.
nice.
Right
Against Bob.
against Bob,
I think.
Sweet.
Josh,
You never talked about our Adeptus Titanicus game day from now October.
did I forget
I
about
just
that?
got to mention that real quick. With that 2v2 game that we actually had
Yes.
with you and me against Austin and Aaron, and
Yes.
some massive cataclysmic
Yeah. I mean, like
chain reactions of explosions. Like that game was super fun, and the fact that we actually got
Completely
an actual
forgot that
2x2
I
player game,
yeah.
that was a fantastic game. The 40K game that I got was me and Matt started off a little narrative campaign kickoff between my Sharkadons and his Gene Stealer Colt.
Nice.
So we started with the mission, which is called, I think it's Patrol Mission. It's one of the narrative missions out of the rule book. And it was a good start for forging a narrative, where it was a good place to kick it off, where, we basically had it set up so that the Sharkadons had intercepted a transmission from a governor palace of a planet that had been previously decimated by Tyranids, and now society has been rebuilding it several hundreds of years later. And they intercepted this transmission from the governor's palace and went to investigate it, not realizing that the Gene Stealer Cult had taken root in this planet that was rebuilding after post-Tyranid invasion.
Mm-hmm.
And so we kind of ran into each other and encountered. So we started with this kind of encounter mission, which was the deployment style was kind of interesting, and how we were supposed to be far away, and things actually came in using the old reserve rules. So you actually had to roll for everything starting turn 1 even. We each got 3 units to deploy with, and then everything else came on with reserve rolls. which kind of screwed up both the armies. So it was a weird game and how it actually played out, because my Marines, being a fleet-based chapter, they all are kind of coming in on flyer transports, or they're deep striking in, or they're scouts that are already kind of deploying outside of deployment zones. So everything that I had deployed outside of the restricted deployment zones, except for the flyers that came on as reserves. And Matt's stuff as Gene Stealer Colt also kind of breaks this rules, and they can just pop up anywhere.
Yep.
So on deployment, he stuck to the deployment restriction on part of it, even though his army can kind of do whatever it wants based upon its tokens and how they pop up, where my stuff kind of broke all the rules. So it didn't end up being a great mission for the game to play out, but it was thematic, but not necessarily a good rules match for how we wanted to kick things off. This was my first time playing with the new Marine Codex, so there was a ton of things that I was forgetting or messing up.
Of course.
But generally, I was really happy with the way the Sharks play now in this new edition with the Codex, using their custom chapter tactics to actually make them feel like the army that they used to be. So I was really happy with that and had a good test run out there. And
what exact rules are you using for them?
The chapter tactics I'm running are, I think it's Hungry for Battle. So they get
fitting
+1 for the charges,
nice.
And Whirlwind of Rage. So on 6s to hit in combat, they get a bonus hit off
exploding
that.
6s.
Yeah,
that's
exploding
cool.
6s and +1
That's really
charge.
cool.
So it made them feel like I'm running them as an assault army, even though they're not. Marines aren't necessarily the best platform to run an assault army, but it's super fun and thematic to run this army that way. And these chapter tactics definitely helped that come to life.
Is there a provision for them having their weapon loadouts, or you just the exploding 6s effectively creates that image? But
there's still the issue with the old Forge World chapter tactic from started in 6th edition, was you actually changed the way that unit was modeled. So they have a bolt pistol, a close combat weapon, and a bolter, which you can't build that loadout legally. But the exploding 6s.
Yeah, I was going to say
covers
the rules make that feel right.
Yeah. So,
very cool.
So it at least feels right. And that was an 85 power level game, and it was a fun game. And we'll have to. You're excited to take the narrative and continue with that, and hopefully just find a mission that fits a little bit better game wise.
Cool. That's kind of one of the fun things I think about narrative gaming, though, is even when that happens and things are wonky rules wise, you go, well, what story did that tell?
Yeah, it made sense too. And okay, well, like the Sharks now think they wiped out this Gene Stealer Colt invasion, and they have no idea what's beneath the surface. So
Sweet.
Excited to see where it goes from there.
All right. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take a short break. We're going to come back, and we'll launch into our main topic, which is the Extended Warrior Lodge. We have several questions that I've posed. There's a lot going on in the community. So we will be right back. Just sit back and relax.
If you're a true follower of chaos, enjoy killing Tau scum, fry devilfish for breakfast, drink the blood of fire warriors, collect the bones of Kroot fodder, desecrate the cockpits of mantas with demonic sigils, sing songs of chaotic praise and joy, when berserkers chain axe overwatching broadsides, helldrake baleflame shield drones into flying discs of spinning fire, and just all around bask in the path to glory, then the Shrine of Chaos podcast is a must-listen for you. I'm Mini Wargamer Dave from MiniWargaming.com, and I invite you to be a champion of chaos. Listen to the Shrine of Chaos podcast wherever podcasts are downloadable. Thank you, independent characters, for allowing this message from the Eye of Terror.
All right, welcome back. We are now launching into the Warrior Lodge. So usually I bring in a lot of different guests for this kind of thing. I like to change it up a bit, but I wanted these three particular people here for this one because there's some topics that I think speak specifically to you guys. So let's just launch into it. Now, normally, also what we'd like to do is pull people in from the Discord channel who are part of the Patreon. Unfortunately, Discord seems to be having issues with Google today, and they're both blaming each other at the moment. So it doesn't look like we're going to be able to pull in guests, which really bums me out because that was like the whole point of doing a live show. But we'll make do, and next time we'll we'll make sure we do it. We'll do this again. This is not the last time we're going to do it. So, okay. So let's start off with question number 1. Here we go. We have now seen 2 of the Psychic Awakening books release. The third, which is Blood Angels and Tyranids, Blood of Baal, which is right over there behind you, Justin, is on its way, or on my game table. And some of the complaints about them are that they are adding yet another layer of rules and complication to the game. People have made allusions that they harken back to 7th edition rules bloat. On the other hand, some people feel they add nice character to the armies that they are addressing. What are your guys' thoughts on so far what we've seen from Psychic Awakening and how that's progressing? And also, I'd like to throw in there just a little bit about what do you think about the lore, if you've gotten into it yet, on how that's advancing anything there. So let's start off with Jody.
This is an interesting one, just because there's anytime rules and narrative start rubbing up against each other, it causes some static. In that, when we take something from a purely narrative approach of what are we doing story-wise for the greater 40K world or universe, and then what are we doing, how's that impacting rules going forward, that's always, I think, a difficult balance, especially when it's a supplement. I mean, there's a level of that exists on every part of the game, but when we start talking about supplementary materials like these, it's going to create some friction about which master are we serving first. And I feel like the Psychic Awakening books are serving the narrative master first. That being said, in terms of there being new rules and new options, and my opponent and I can cherry pick which parts of those rules we want to use. And if I want to use Mephiston to tell a particular story, that now I've got a cool new version of him, and I didn't have to wait specifically for
the new codex.
The new codex, which at once upon a time was 5 or 6 years, but now
it's like
a
2
year
months.
Or next week. I'd have to wait all the way to next week but whatever it may be, that we can pick and choose what we want from those. There's this almost unlimited number of missions to choose from, and we just pick and choose what we want. Man, I think that's just awesome from a narrative point of view. I mean, it's more tools to work with. Now, does that mean that there's too many rules in too many places, and how do people keep track of everything?
We've beat that, but we've kind of beaten that horse to death. I think we all agree it'd be great if they released a digital app. Sure. I think the thing we settled on was, or at least I settled on, I don't want to speak for you guys, was the way Wizards of the Coast is doing it for Dungeons and Dragons is they have kind of their D20 or Dungeons and Dragons online thing that you subscribe to. You buy the, or rather, you don't subscribe. There's not a subscription. Let me back that up. That you buy the books digitally, and then you have access to them through their site, and there's other features like you can search and that kind of thing. I think that's ultimately where I think Games Workshop needs to go. I think it'd be super helpful.
Agreed.
There's no doubt that would be better.
Yeah.
In terms of specifically the argument that we're back to 7th edition in levels of complexity and things, man, I disagree with that 8,000%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because, and I keep beating this particular drum, that if you are feeling that way, that you're entitled to your feelings. But when I hear people make that argument that we're back to that level of complexity, I don't feel like that's a rules or a game problem. That's a player perception problem.
Yeah. You said this before too.
Okay. Then,
which I think is a great point.
That it's you are choosing to feel that you need every single rule. Now, if you are a tournament player, okay, yeah, that's a lot to keep up with, and it is a different, challenging thing to keep up with. And I'm sympathetic to that as somebody who's not really much of a tournament style player. But also I kind of go, but as a tournament player, that's always been your reality of having to keep up with this new moving set of rules. And I don't know I'd be happy to hear that community's views, that part of the community's views. But this is really more of a perception issue of it's so complicated, I can't keep up. The core mechanics of the game are fundamentally the same.
Oh yeah.
And your codex is the predominant means by which you're going to access that. And the number of rules you're interacting with is no greater. I would argue it's less on any given game to approach that table with this edition. Even with these additional books, we're still not to that level of a universally large set of universal rules, right? That you had to track all the time to play. So yeah, but I love, from a narrative point of view, man, more tools for me and my opponent to tell a story and pick and choose what we want. I think they're rad, and I love that the story is moving forward. And I'm anxious to really have been. I think Josh and I are both feeling this like pull to like, I really want to get a handle on what's going on, since the Maledictum opened up. Yeah, like where are we really at? And there's some key points to hit there.
It ain't good.
Justin?
Yeah.
I am all for these books. I absolutely love them. I think that maybe the release of, because I look at these as a great opportunity to kind of help, like a stopgap to kind of help certain armies that might be struggling at the moment, it does seem like, of course, Marines are getting a little more powerful and more rules, Eldar are getting all these buffs, which they were pretty good already. Kind of would have liked to see them focus on armies like, Necrons or...
Well...
Yeah, I mean, I know it's going to eventually
we
happen.
play tested some of this stuff, right? And everybody's getting touched.
Yeah, everybody gets theirs.
Everybody's getting touched in the feelies, yep. I absolutely love them. I think it's really cool. I've always loved the whole, especially create your own chapter or craft world or, Coven, Cabal, whatever. That I simply love that design mechanic, and a lot of them are kind of a little meh, but some are look just fun to use and full of flavor. As far as the rules bloat thing goes, I totally agree with Jody. It can be overwhelming, especially if you're like a competitive player and you kind of
or a
need
new player.
Or a new player, but is a new player really? Are these for the new player?
That's
who's still trying to fundamentally
come to grips with their codex and the rules.
What's toughness? What's a stratagem? I mean, I see these as more of it's like a first world veteran gamer kind of a problem to have.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Yeah.
But for myself personally, bring them, keep them coming.
Okay.
And especially with, like you brought up Mephiston, of like, they can introduce, new models here and there or new units here or there without you having to wait that 3 weeks for the codex to come out.
Right. Do you remember waiting 12 years for a codex?
13? No.
Now it's
I don't remember anymore as I reach back to a sister's codex.
Yeah. Josh.
I'm on board with what both of these fine gentlemen are saying. Jody especially, I completely agree. Like, it's a beautiful narrative tool, what these are bringing to the equation. Faith and Fury specifically, like, look at that and being able to create your own, what's I'm totally blanking on the name right now. They basically master librarian, a master chaplain. I don't remember their official titles, but basically you can upgrade your characters and take them to that next level, and then they unlock powers and kind of see that narrative of your army come to life on the tabletop. I think that's a great tool. I don't think that 40K to me isn't a competitive game. It's a narrative game that has a rule set. And these are just more options to bring that lore to life on the tabletop. Because if you look at the competitive 40K, like most people are playing ITC, which isn't really 40K as we know it. Like, it's actually kind of a different
pretty much its own game.
Yeah. It's not 40K, it is, but it isn't. So these supplements are doing a great job of bringing all these extra narrative components into the game to let people bring that lore to life on the tabletop, like bringing the 40K universe to life on the tabletop. I think these books are doing a beautiful job of that, giving people options to do that. And I don't think it's a thing where everybody needs to go out and buy every book, because only really it's one book is going to be relevant to the army that you're playing. If you have a bunch of armies, that is multiple books. But even when actually playing a game on the tabletop, if you if I'm playing a game and say I'm playing Ultramarines right now, there's Codex and there's the Ultramarine supplement book. But even I don't need to bring that book to the table with me, because really there's Scions of Gilliman and maybe a stratagem or two, or a character that I'm using, but I don't need to bring that book, and I don't need to bring one of the Faith and Fury book or something to that. You don't need to have 3 or 4 books referencing while you're actually playing a game, because you've already built your list.
Right.
You raised an interesting point in that this just provides more options.
Yeah.
It's interesting that we're living in a gaming world where more options are being considered a bad thing by some people.
Yeah.
And that's a real struggle for me to understand. I get complexity. I get adding complexity to the game. I think the new Space Marines Codex added a new layer of complexity to that army. It's certainly not as easy to manage as it was before, but I think the results also speak for themselves. I think it adds more options to you to use. You can choose to use them and choose not to use them. That's up to you. I know, again, having some of us play tested some of this stuff and seeing what's coming, I am very, very anxious for my armies to get touched, because purely from the fact, in particular, and we can't go into details about them yet, but in particular, Thousand Sons, there is so much character that I'm going to be able to play around with and toy with and try different things that I cannot wait for it to come out.
And that's exactly what I mean when I'm saying bringing the 40K lore to life on the tabletop. It's bringing all that character that's in there that isn't necessarily represented in the codexes as they are right now. Yeah. And I think these books are doing a good job of actually bringing all that flavor and character onto the tabletop.
And in some cases, a lot of the things that have sat there historically that really kind of gotten forgotten about or glossed over at this point, I think you're gonna see in more detail and depth. So I think it's gonna be awesome.
Well, and to Justin's point of making it your own, you get to pick and choose and do what you want. Well, then you can actually go, so bringing the narrative to life on the tabletop as you individually see it, you know, I mean, and how cool is that? But I think that's interesting the way you put it, Carl, about more options, and I'm sad.
Yeah, it's rough.
There's actually a psychological theory about that, about when you give people more options, you actually more freedom of choice.
Freedom of choice
decreases your happiness.
I have heard this.
You end up, when there's more options, you blame yourself for not being able to choose. When there's a shortage of options, you blame the provider for not giving you enough options. But now that we have a glut of options, it's on you, and it makes you feel bad that you can't pick and choose which option to use or sort through them. Or
you heard it here first. It's your fault that you feel bad about the more options.
The other part of it is there's so many options. You pick an option, and then you're disappointed in the option that you've chosen, because one of the multitude of other options out there could have been better. You have no idea.
That's a fascinating.
I wrote my whole MFA thesis is actually on that. So.
Who do you remember?
Eric Fromm.
Thank you.
Yep.
Your whole what thesis was?
My master's degree thesis was actually, yeah, with photography and freedom of choice. Eric Fromm, German psychologist.
Yeah. The Fromm was like back there going like,
that
you
is
can't remember.
Fascinating. Yeah. That's fascinating. Okay.
He's a fascinating guy. That's why you have him on the show.
That's a fascinating question. Glad I wrote it.
Nice job, Carl.
Let's move on to question number 2. Everybody got everything out they want to say about that? I feel like,
I think so.
Like that was good summary. All right. Chapter Approve is being split into 2 separate books. In my question, I said, it looks like. No, it is. I have it right over there.
They are over there.
It's split into 2 separate books. They are sold together. Price has not gone up on it. One book will contain all the points across all the armies, so you have a single reference book. Justin, you can see it right there, how thin the points reference book is. It's kind of nice. The Munitorum Field Manual. And the other contains missions, styles of play, some really cool stuff in it this year. Ways of playing mixed games where it's like, one game is affecting the other game. I love where they're going with some of this stuff. The internet critique here has been that there are 2 books people have to lug around now. I personally think this is a good thing. I mean, do you really need to take your book with the points to the table most times? I mean, for me, at least the way I've typically worked is I show up at a location with a game planned, or let's say I don't, but I have a list that's like 1,500, 2,000 points. Yeah. Great. Anybody play a 1,500, 2,000 point game. I don't need to lug around this book.
That is
heavy. How heavy is that
booklet?
This is easily an entire encyclopedia collection.
Or if permission is given, you just photocopy the one page of your points and put it in your book.
Whatever you got to do. Right? I mean, again, maybe we're overstating that. What do you think? Drawbacks, advantages about the way they've approached Chapter Approved this year? Any thoughts? Let's start with Justin this time.
My thought process is this should be free and digital, like AOS.
What's the this?
The points, all the points. The fact that they are split up. I'm okay with it.
I'll agree with you. Actually, I think the points adjustments should be free.
I mean, look at Cultists, for example. They've gone from 4 points to 5 points, back to 4 points.
Right.
And it's like,
I mean, I agree. They should be free. Games Workshop's clearly not going to make them free, unfortunately. But this is where we sit. So I agree with you 100%. I think the points should be free.
Especially with, I'm super stoked, kind of sidetracked with Games Workshop and their FAQs and how even after an Army book comes out, because
2 weeks later is FAQ on it.
Yeah, because people are always like, well, why didn't they play test it better and fix it before? It's like this book went to printer print a long time ago. It's not like it just happens overnight. But I'm like A-okay with the current status of Games Workshop, and like if something is overpowered, they're really looking at it, fixing it right away. Mm-hmm. But it does get kind of hard to keep track of. Even with some of my armies, I'm like, how many points is that again? Is it this points? Is it that points? Is it can my flyers move assault over models? Can they not? It is kind of getting a little tough to keep all that stuff straight, especially when you have 8 editions in your head. But as far as these books goes, like I'm okay with it. I think it's a really cool idea, and you'll probably see more people just kind of lugging this thing around than the cool narrative missions and all the different things. But I'm okay with it. I don't mind. Being sold separately could have been kind of a cool option, but what is this, like $30 or something? 25, 30
I think
bucks?
whatever it's $35, whatever chapter approved typically sells for. That's what it's selling for.
Same price as the previous ones. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm okay with it.
Okay.
It doesn't bother me at all.
Josh, let's go to you.
Yeah. I think the reality of the situation is most people building armies using points these days or using an app to build said armies. So as soon as whoever is programming said app puts these points in that app, this book goes away. This book sits on a shelf. You never have to look at it again.
Right.
And I think that's the reality of it. So having this separate, I'm actually a big fan of, because the second book has all your cool chapter approved, all the missions and things in one spot with narrative interactions and just updated data sheets and things like that. I think it's a rad resource. And I'm looking to my collection of books, and like the one book that I have from previous editions still is that Battle Motion book from 5th edition, which is still fully playable even in 8th edition or in any editions in between. Things like these missions, they're never going to go away. This is an evergreen book where this has a very limited shelf life until the next round of points comes out. And again, as soon as this gets plugged into an app, like those are gone.
Right. If you look at it that way, Games Workshop's really helping you. They're making the chapter approved book lighter. The relevant piece of it is lighter.
Yes, if the weight of carrying the books is your issue,
they are helping.
This book I'm going to keep for 10 years, where this book is relevant to me until it gets put into an app, and then
or until the next one comes out.
Or until the next one, right?
Whereas the chapter approved, other than that section, they're all still valid.
Yeah. If they do the same thing next year and they have 18 more missions to add to it, like I'm going to have 2 books to draw a mission from for a game where like neither of those 2 point books has to even come to the table.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
And that point was when I saw this question, that's exactly what my thought was there's this weird, within the hobby, this weird perception issue of as soon as a newer edition of something comes out, that means all the content in the old one is no longer valid. Like you see that over and over and over play out with people like, oh, well, that was a 5th edition mission. We can't play it. Why? Yeah. It's the mission is what's the parameters. So by pulling the points out of the chapter approved book into its own booklet, hopefully it'll help with that perception issue that no, the chapter approved, what is that portion called? Chapter approved.
Chapter approved.
The chapter approved portion of the book, not the Munitorum's portion of the book, will hopefully maintain their value to people a lot longer.
Yeah.
I am really frustrated that I don't get a free Sisters Codex inside of it. They did last year. What the heck? Jeez, that's it. I'm done. I'm out.
Well, okay, that part of chapter approved is now obsolete.
Yeah, that is obsolete. But, that notion of the missions and all that other stuff, hopefully it helps with that people are so quick to be like, well, that was an old edition, so I can't play, I can't use any of that anymore. You can do whatever you like. It's your hobby. Have fun with it. So hopefully it helps.
Here's a point you brought up, Justin, I thought was interesting. You were talking about the points, the Munitorum section, the points. They should be free. And then you brought up during that point, you said, GW's doing a great job of addressing units that are overpowered and now correcting them and based on data from tournaments and such. And so they're addressing these things on a regular basis. And I agree. And although we have to pay for the points adjustments as it stands right now, I think, when Ronald Reagan was running for president against Jimmy Carter, he asked, are you better now than you were 4 years ago? I think when we ask ourselves, well, based on the way GW is doing this work, are we better now than we were 4 or 5 years ago? Because they're adjusting points in such rapid succession. Yeah, you have to pay for it, but I think the game is in a healthier spot for sure because we're taking these types of approaches. So
absolutely,
yeah. So anyway, I think this chapter approved is solid. Like it's a solid entry. Also, they have Spearhead in it, which
that's right.
I loved.
Get your tank on.
I'm telling you, I remember when Spearhead came out in White Dwarf originally, and everybody was yelling at Games Workshop about they're just trying to sell tanks and they're just trying to, well, yeah, of course they're trying to sell tanks and monsters.
And there's no treadheads out there that have 50 Imperial Guard vehicles, right?
They always use this term. It's a money grab. Well, yeah, it's and I get also that what they mean by the context of money grab is there's not substance to this. It's just you trying to get money. I got to tell you, the Spearhead games I played were an absolute blast, and I play Spearhead again in a minute. It was super
Let's
fun.
do it. I would love to. I've never done it with my orcs, and I've always wanted to because
I got a lot of tanks.
Yeah, we should totally do it.
I got a lot of Minotaur
Bring
tanks.
out the Land Raiders and everything.
Oh, yeah. I think it'd be awesome. Okay, well, let's do this. We're going to take a short break. We're going to come back. We're going to continue on with the Warrior Lodge Live. So we will be right back.
Maybe you think you know everything about Table War at this point, but do you know about the good work being done by the folks at Table War Charities? If there is one thing we have learned about the wargaming community, it is how supportive and generous it is. If you're looking to help with a good cause, we might just have the answer for you. Table War Charities is a charitable organization with the focused purpose of funding or providing autism advocacy in schools for students and their parents. Early intervention and the tailoring of educational services is critical to helping children with autism reach their full potential. For more information or to donate to this important cause, please visit tablewarcharities.org. And right now, if you donate $10 or more to Table War Charities, we will send you a $10 Table War gift certificate. So if you're looking to purchase anything from Table War, you can also help some great kids out in the process.
All right, and we are back, continuing on with the Warrior Lodge Live. Thank you for those who have joined us actually live. Again, I apologize that we can't pull people in from Discord. Such a bummer. It was super fun last time, and I was really looking forward to doing it again. So we will definitely do this again. Anyway, let's move on to question 3. Games Workshop has announced that some unspecified time in the future, perhaps a couple or 3 years, we are going to see the release of old world fantasy battles for Warhammer. They've equated this to being the same as Horus Heresy as it relates to Warhammer 40,000. What are your thoughts around this? And what do you think GW has planned? Because the reason I ask that is that there were IP issues that resulted in basically, there were a combination of factors that resulted in them eliminating the old world and launching Age of Sigmar. Primarily around those was a lawsuit involving Chapter House Studios, where, and again, I've heard this from the horse's mouth, in court, they were tasked to basically defend themselves and say, what is it about Warhammer Fantasy that's different than other fantasy worlds and makes it unique so that it's uniquely Warhammer, so it's something you can protect against your IP. And primarily that thing was chaos and the inclusion of chaos and the intrinsic way in which it feeds through the old world. So this is why you see Chaos reign supreme and then ending the old world and launching of Age of Sigmar and Chaos having such a large presence in that, and the renaming of forces and that kind of thing. Everything. So they can protect all of this and make those things unique to their own world. But now they're talking about going back to this old world. So how do they do that? What do you think? Justin, I'm going to start with you. I swear to God, I almost said Jason because your stupid name tag.
Yes, success.
Justin, I'm going to start with you because get it off your head.
Dude, that scar healed up beautifully, though, by the way. I told my students about it, and they thought it was awesome. So, sorry.
I'm going to start with you because you, more than I think all these guys, were so passionate about it up until the time that You were very anti-Age of Sigmar at the time it launched, and we've gone over that.
I didn't burn my models.
You did not.
I was
burn
not
your
doing
models.
that.
Smart move.
But I was definitely looking at other things like Ninth Age and
Sure.
Kings of War, and because I enjoyed the rank and flank thing.
So what do you think about this whole change? I mean, clearly we don't know exactly what they're going to do.
Yeah.
But
So my ex called. She's more beautiful than ever. She's rich. I'm single too. We're role playing here. She's lonely. She's a little bit crazy. Yeah, and I'm single. And that's kind of what's going through my head is I don't know what to think about this thing. Like I'm excited, but I kind of feel like worried and, just like I don't know what they're going to do with it. It was a very vague thing that they came out with.
Yeah.
But all in all, like I'm more excited and stoked about the whole thing, to be quite honest, and kind of makes me very happy because I have a massive box of movement trays that I would custom make my movement trays and make them look pretty. And there's been so many times where I've had that thing like hovering over my garbage can, just like, no, put it back on the shelf, and I have a lot of armies that are still on squares, like 2 or 3
that you never transferred over. Yeah.
That I never transferred over. So I'm excited. And then the fact that Forge World is kind of taking over, for the most part, right?
I don't
announced?
know. I don't know.
I got that vibe.
I kind of
as
get
well.
that impression. I mean, if they're going to treat it how they treat Horus Heresy,
Yeah.
not even lore speaking, like not even meaning, how it sits in the universe versus, but if they're going to treat it like that, then they're going to treat it through that part of the studio. I think.
Sure. So I'm excited to see the models they come out with. I mean, I can't imagine there's not going to be plastic kits for this. I just don't know what to make of it really, but all in all, I am super, super excited. I mean, I had so many great games of fantasy back in the day with Chris, and that was the first thing he pinged me. He's like, Kinstrife, because we did get these epic Dark Elf on High Elf battles, and they were just bloody and murderous, and he's like, Kinstrife in 3 years, and I'm like, yes. So beyond excited, but again, it's just... It kind of proves too, like how much the old world really was like special to people, right? Even though it was like, it took like history and Tolkien and horror and all these things and kind of made this ball of awesome. Mm-hmm. A lot of it wasn't really original, but the fact that it kind of melded all this stuff together made it an original thing, right?
Yeah.
And it kind of rings true that a lot of people are excited about it, like it hasn't just been blown up and thrown in the garbage. People are stoked. People are excited from the feedback that I've seen, and I'm excited. I'm very excited.
Okay, Josh, let's go to you.
Yeah, I'm also quite excited. I played quite a bit of 6th, 7th, and 8th edition fantasy and was a big fan of that game. And rank and flank and maneuvering and all that was even more important than it is in any of the other games, and just had that extra level of crunch to it with maneuvering and the big blocks of infantry. I absolutely loved the lore of the old world, and that was by far my biggest loss. Them blowing up the world was that lore, and the first Black Library books I ever read were all Warhammer Fantasy Battle books, and just really got into it and got all the chaos that's in there, which was super prevalent in all the books there, especially like Slaanesh working its way into just common people in the Empire and the weird mutations that they get.
All the crevices,
all the crevices. I'm excited but tentative at the same time.
Sure.
I'm not sure what they're going to do gameplay wise to differentiate this from any of the other games that are out there. So we have no information on that yet. What the scale is, if it's a skirmish game versus
I've got to imagine
large scale fantasy battle.
I've got to imagine they're going to go with large scale fantasy battles that are much more rules heavy, crunchy than the Age of Sigmar stuff.
But probably very fine tuned. I imagine
that would be my hope personally. And honestly, I was thinking about it, and on the IP side of things, like Games Workshop's doing so well, even if they just bring back the old world and have a model range and care less about that. Yeah. With everything else they have going, like maybe that's okay. Maybe they don't need to protect everything, or maybe they change everything and have it super IP protected and just amazing new models and all that. I'm really curious to see what they do with it, but I'm excited. But at the same time, I have so many games I'm into right now. Yeah. I'm not necessarily going to jump back into it, even if it's exactly what I want.
Right. I think that's a very, very interesting point.
How do you guys feel real quick about like the way that they went about it? Like, hey, this is a 2 to 3, like this is not happening soon. And being very vague, like, do you agree with that? Or do you think they should have maybe had a bit more to kind of promote and go off of instead of
I
the
think
way they did it.
with the the Sisters Codex and how they put out that the last chapter approved and leading up to it with beta rules and things like that. Like I think they're giving us the information that they have as they come up with, and they're just being kind of open and honest. And when they're at a point where they're actually ready to share and they have concrete direction and all that, like they've clearly been working on this already, and they're going to continue to work on it behind the scenes.
Right.
It's not going to be kind of in the limelight until it's ready to go. But I have a feeling over the next 2 to 3 years, as they work on this, we're going to get more hints. I don't think it's all of a sudden going to come out of nowhere and be like, boom, this is what it is.
Well, I think that's exactly what they're preventing, because the backlash that would occur if it was a boom, here's this game, would be, I honestly think, hitherto unprecedented level of nerd rage.
They're already dealing with backlash,
right?
Just by mentioning it,
right?
People, oh, I see. So now you've screwed me out of my square-based models.
I can't unburn my high elf.
Yeah,
you're going back to my square-based models.
It's the abusive ex-girlfriend or boyfriend,
I love that metaphor, by the way. Especially that she's rich now. That was the key. Like, man, this could be really fun. That notion though of, so I'm big on, steer into it. And if you're going to give somebody bad news, just rip the Band-Aid off, just get it over with. But part of that as a parent, when it's like, okay, we're going to rip the Band-Aid off, is you tell them, I'm going to rip the Band-Aid off. 1, 2, 3, it's off. Like
1, 2.
Yeah.
I'm going to rip it off on 3.
Well, that's the other secret, is don't let them brace for it. But there is an amount of this that I think on their part, I feel my worry outweighs my excitement about it. In your, ex calling me back, I am like, wow, but she was real crazy and lit my stuff on fire. That part of it, it is good to be like, at least she called and didn't show up, on my doorstep in a much more convincing way. I got the phone call or the text.
She IM'd me.
Yeah. There was the like, hey, what do you think? And I'm like, well, I got a minute to think about it. So let's try and really be,
it was
your
minds. Ex-girlfriend calling and saying, hey, you want to get together next week? And you're like, what's this all about? And now you're left to wonder, what's going on for a week?
Hey, no, it's, you want to get together 2 to 3 years from now?
Yeah.
It'd be fun. Wouldn't it be fun?
I'm planning on breaking up with my current boyfriend then. I think we're all getting some things out here. This is wonderful. I want to go to Ash Barker of Guerrilla Miniature Games. He posted a quote right after this that I thought really nailed it.
And before you say this, I think a lot of people were coming at this saying, well, I have all these old models that are still on square bases, or I'm upset because I removed my models from square bases. And then you came across this quote.
And that's where I felt my misstep of like, why are you going back on people? Like, this feels like a take backsy of, right? And Ash Barker posted this on social media. He said, you don't make money making a game that doesn't require people to buy new toy soldiers. Right. And instantly I went, oh, yeah, okay. My buddy Anthony, who was my OG fantasy battle opponent way back, I think in 3rd edition, I want to say, he messaged me and was like, hey, what do you think? Because we had our Chaos on Chaos battles, much like your Kinstrife battles, which were just epic and wonderful. And one of the things he mentioned, he goes, well, if it's going to be like 30K, which is one of the teases, he said, and in terms of the IP issue, what could they IP protect easily? Chaos, which is easy. They've made their own. Yep. The Empire is surprisingly their own thing.
This was actually, though, one of the things that came up in the lawsuit, Empire in particular, and Bretonians.
Yeah, just medieval Europe.
How is this?
Right. So if you move away from Empire as a collective and you move into Talabheim, Kislev, I am losing the other ones because they all burned up.
Sure.
If it's like 30K and we focus on classic historical battles of, for example, all this information used to be
Middenheim.
Yeah. And you focus on the great original Chaos Crusades against those specific city-states.
You're talking about the Storm of Chaos.
I'm going even earlier, but yeah, the Great War of Chaos, where it was like Magnus the Pious and like all of those, right? But you focus on those regions and those unique spaces. Those are all very uniquely GW locations on maps with specific cultures and specific designs and specific aesthetics, which would be rich for delivering models to and creating a narrative around, and still using your Slaves to Darkness models. I could see them doing that very, very possibly, and that allows them to protect it using the war cry model of maybe then there's some supplementary ways of here's some additional ways you could use these other armies might have.
They would have to super double down on it, right? Like they'd have to super double down on the iconography and the the dress and it would have to really, really be invested.
So applying a micro lens to it as opposed to a macro view, which it used to have, really getting down to an individual city state, individual, legions of chaos attacking, which is frankly a lot of how 30K operates in its narrative. I could see that. Another way is they just said square bases. What if it's 15 millimeter? Or 10 millimeter, because there have been hints and rumors around GW doing a War Master or epic scale game for a long time.
I bet you it actually goes larger.
A little bit larger scale.
Yeah, I think
Bringing
it goes.
54 back.
I think it goes more to no. I don't think that, but I think Joe. But if you look at Age of Sigmar, you look at even 40K, like everything's getting a little bit bigger. It used to be 28 millimeter. I think effectively we're probably 32.
Or more
at this point. I'll bet you they go larger, and that would also address hey, you want to sell models? Well, yeah, you have those models. Look how tiny and undetailed they look, and now look at these new.
I don't see them doing that.
No,
I don't foresee them doing that.
You think they'll go smaller?
I think scale creep with the new models might be a thing.
Yeah,
but I really think, if anything, I kind of agree with Jody that they would go like a smaller War Master type.
So you can go larger battles.
Yeah, that's possible too.
And that might kind of scratch the itch of their, AT for the fantasy genre.
Yeah. That's a good point. 30K hasn't gotten larger. Right.
I feel like, and ultimately the punchline on like, how do you feel about this? I felt like this was a misstep. How do you deal with this in a way that it isn't causing negative feelings?
Well, and this was kind of my next point is it going to split the community even more there? Clearly we outside feel like the 30K, 40K community has a very definitive split. There's very few people who cross boundaries there.
Yep.
But clearly GW doesn't think that's the case. I don't know what market research they've done to identify that, but
I think they've really just like kind of seen that there's still a lot of people that are ranking flanking.
Yeah.
And
I think that's
there's
true.
Still a desire for that type of game, and I'm excited, man.
Do you think it'll hurt AOS though? Because the idea was pull those fantasy players into AOS. Do you feel like that's been done enough to where it's okay to go now? Let's give something to the rank and flankers.
Looking at the big picture. I think that. Look at 40K. You still have your kill team, and you still have your big way to play, and you have your Necromunda. It's just another way to play, and take it or leave it. Again, it's kind of back to that option thing. But for all the old grognards like us,
not me,
not you,
and I'm the oldest one here.
But I wouldn't be surprised either if they do movement trays, kind of like the War of the Ring.
Yeah,
movement trays that have the round cutouts.
Sure.
So people that are playing AOS can just take that Slaves to Darkness army and port it into those little movement trays, and voila, you can rank and flank.
Yeah,
for sure. So you have the option.
But going smaller would prevent that.
It would,
which is a good point. And if you want to sell models,
it'll
be interesting to see what they do.
I am very interested to see how they dance this dance, because
it's a tightrope walk.
Really is some. There have never been hurt feelings like these hurt feelings. We did not see.
Yes, that's when they killed the old world.
No, that's what I'm saying. Is those hurt feelings of when the old world blew up. We haven't seen that kind. I haven't seen within wargaming.
Anybody else said
that level of
armies on fire.
Yeah, that level of
that dude will forever go down in infamy. Of
hey, you know what? He got his 15 minutes.
He did.
Now it's extended to 30 minutes. Okay.
I don't know his name, so
sure. Me either. Whatever. I just remember watching him.
Seen the footage.
Good job.
Yeah. But bringing this full circle to the point of like having more options and us complaining about having more options on ways to play games.
True. It's a good point, Josh.
That's real.
Like we're primarily 40K players, right? We don't get mad at like 30K guys for, we think it's cool.
Right. Yeah.
And I kind of see that same relationship.
If they bring it back and it's not, not what you want it to be, like don't play it. Don't play it. That's fine. You got
truly.
going on.
Don't get upset about it. Just don't play it.
Just don't play it.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move on to question 4, and this is actually our final question of the show. I think it is. Nope, I have 5 questions. Sorry. Next. Ooh, good. Whew. I thought we were running a little light.
Oh, no.
Question 4. We have now seen the future of Games Workshop models when it comes to addressing older models with the new Legends status for these units. This has, of course, generated a massive amount of discussion in the various groups and forums. You like that?
Yeah, discussion. You put that very tactfully. That's, you think?
So let me talk a little bit about what Legends is real quick for those who may not know. So basically what has happened is Games Workshop, this is their pitch for it, not mine. This is their pitch. We want you to continue to be able to use the models you have bought in infinitum forever. So what we are going to do, though, is there are models and units that we don't want to continue to support for organized play, but we want you to still, you've bought them, we want you to be able to use them. We are going to move those models and units into a Legends category, which is we will not really update the points or power level on these units. They won't be a part of that, cycle of information coming from tournaments because they won't theoretically be used in tournaments, and we won't collect that data on them. And we'll move them to this category so you have the rules for them. You can play them. Those rules are free forever. I get the impression they will, like if 9th edition comes around and changes things, they will update these, or maybe that's when they'll update points for these. They have said you will be able to use these going forward. So, but they are removing some of these units from codexes, from those kinds of things, future codexes, and moving them into this Legends category where you can download the rules for them and use them for free. So this has obviously caused a lot of angst in the community. What are your thoughts? Is this a mistake or a good move? Does it even matter? Is really kind of what it boils down to. Josh, let's start with you this time.
Yeah, sounds good. To me, honestly, I think it's a good move. Like most of the models that I saw that were in Legends were index only models. So now they're out of indexes. Like indexes are basically out of the game now. You've got your codex and you've got Legends. And if you want to play Legends, there's nothing stopping you from playing that in a friendly pickup game. The only real restriction on Legends is in organized play specifically. And like if it's a Legends sanctioned tournament, like bring whatever you want. If it's not, then you're playing 40K as intended with balance and all that as the game's intended to be played at this time. I think it's cool that they didn't just blow up the old world again. They kept the models. They're in there. They have rules. Anybody who's gone and converted things like Librarians on Bikes, which was never an official release model.
Chaplain on a bike.
That was an official model.
Yeah.
But a lot of the Legends...
Cost me $75 to convert that guy that I sold to Austin.
A lot of the Legend entries were things that didn't have models to support them, which is why they were axed. So if you converted those, or you have some of the older models that are just kind of not relevant to the way that the modern armies are designed in the codexes to be run, then you still have the option to play them, but it's not the intention of the book. And I have no doubt in my mind, and again, most of the things that I saw in the Legends categories were models on bikes.
Yeah.
And I have no doubt, like, bikes are still a big part of 40K. If you look at Gene Stealer Cult, still have Scout Bikers. Gene Stealer Cult has their charge pack demo guys, and there's bikes represented in so many different armies that I have no doubt that we're going to see some kind of
new releases,
future iteration of
I've got
a Primaris bike, or
but I don't think I don't know that it's going to be a wheeled bike. I think it's going to be some
maybe
grav.
It'll be grav or hover, and who knows? But I think bikes are going to get reinvented in a cool way, and they probably won't have character options the way that the older versions of 40K did, because there's not, every 40K has changed in the way that character models are specifically. Like, you can't just give anybody a jump pack anymore. You can't just give anybody a bike. Like, it's more prescriptive and it's more reflected in the model range specifically. Like, if that model exists, there's an entry for it. If it doesn't exist, there's not. There you go. Like, I don't know. So I'm fine with it. If you have these models and you want to play with them and they're important to you, it's still a completely valid option. I think most of the people who have Legends models weren't running them in tournaments anyways. So
that was kind of my take on it.
I think at the end of the day, for me, I don't think it makes a difference, because I think people who want to play with them still absolutely can, and they have the option there. So
now, granted, I mean, most of us are coming from a non-tournament viewpoint. I get that. That's why, again, I was hoping there was going to be somebody in our Patreon that was maybe a tournament player. I could pull them in for this particular thing and see how much it matters to them. But looking from the outside in, I agree with you. I don't think we have a lot of tournament players that are running a chaplain on a bike.
Right.
White Scars may be an exception, a librarian on a bike, that kind of thing. But even there, I feel like the tournament scene and the strength of the tournament scene, if you're trying to win those tournaments, you're not playing those armies. You're not using the units that they have removed. Most likely. Now, I know ARCs got hit a little hard too for some things that people were doing. So I think there's
Imperial Guard can't take Rough Riders anymore.
Oh no.
I saw so many of those.
So I mean, there is certainly a factor where people are impacted. I'm not saying there's no impact in my mind. I just don't know that it matters that much. And the further we get away from it, I don't think it's going to have much of more of an impact. Justin, what were your thoughts?
I'm kind of meh on the whole thing. I mean, I think it's cool that they did it. I'm okay with it. They've already announced they're not going to adjust the points on these things. I think what my frustration kind of goes back to is like before even all this stuff is like you go through and you convert up and you spend all the money and you paint this unit or you paint this model. And like I understand the IP infringement thing, and I just think there's a lot of units like my Dark Elf or Dark Eldari, Trueborn, for example. It's like, okay, you don't make a kit for that, but all that was just a bunch of guys I could convert up with a bunch of cool weapons, and all of a sudden they're just gone. I can't take them. So I think, and I'm a big fan of converting things too. And I started from, second edition days where you could kind of personalize your models a bit more, and I think that games,
it's harder to do now with the kits that are coming out.
I mean, I'm okay with that. I mean, they're plastic.
They're more detailed. They're plastic, but the average person, it's a little harder to kit bash a few things with the newer stuff.
Yeah, maybe a little bit harder, but I think that like in all, it seems like the company's been a little bit heavy-handed in, this character, this autarch can only take this or this, and it's like, dude, I used to have like 10 options before that I could have
much more
easily converted from your current range.
Yeah.
And it's that end of it's been really frustrating. Like apparently I just need to start magnetizing my characters more because Games Workshop just keeps like, oh yeah, you can take a claw on that guy. You can't anymore. And not haha. I don't think they're getting any pleasure out of this. I think they're definitely
I ran into the same thing with my Death Guard. My old Forge World Death Guard are no longer valid. So it's like, oh, okay, well.
Yeah.
And that actually kicked me off the Death Guard horse, effectively. I mean, I was kind of really excited that Death Guard were getting attached because that was my army. That was like my thing at the time. I won a painting award for that army, back when most people didn't have Forge World stuff. So I was super excited about Death Guard. And then, it came out and I became way less enchanted with it. As soon as I saw all my stuff was invalidated, I was like, well, do I really want to go through this? And plus, I run that usual. Everybody was running them at the time, so maybe I'll hold off for a while.
Yeah.
Still an army appeals to me. I just much more interested in the Zeech stuff. But
sure,
that's kind of aside from the point. I didn't mean to distract you. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I mean, as far as them, again, this is also something that Games Workshop didn't necessarily have to do, right? They could have said, sorry, gone.
Right.
Bam. So now you have that option to use that autarch with a warp jump generator and a melt-a-gun and jump around. And I don't ever foresee, like, if I was to play you guys, hey, do you mind if I use that? Like, you'd be cool with it, especially because he's probably...
Is it a hoodie game?
We don't talk about that thing apparently anymore. So yeah, it's a little heavy-handed, but I'm okay with as far as the way Games Workshop I think has been like hitting these books and these units and these characters.
And I think the pace at which new models are coming out speaks to some of that too. Right?
Sure.
I mean, okay, so we've removed these things. What are your other options that we're releasing? And again, anyway, Jody,
I think adjusting a lot of your meh feelings are where I'm at. I see this as actually a really complex issue. Like, I don't know what to fully think about it. It's like, on one hand, they killed a what if, and I am always a fan of killing a what if.
How do you mean?
What if I could use this model, or what if I have this old model and then I use it as this other model, and
in some way nobody anticipated.
Or what if they do bring this model back? Or there's all these what ifs about these old floating models that haven't really been loved up or kept up on over the last few editions.
What if they release a new Doom Rider?
Yes,
it would look cooler than the first one.
I guarantee
is the answer to that what if.
Just a bit.
I mean, it's even worse than the Nick Cage Ghost Rider, and that's bad.
Yeah, you're right.
But it killed some what ifs, and I'm always a fan of let us know what's up, and they let us know. And I think the point that you just brought up, they didn't have to. Well, rad. Thank you, GW, for like, here's what's up with these models. These guys, they're not getting love anymore. This is where they live now.
Yeah.
On the other hand, though, that means they're not this is one of the, again, that perception within the player base issues we run into of if something isn't valid across all styles of play, which usually, because the most strict one is matched play, if it's not valid in matched play, the community tends to go, oh, so it's not valid. Is the reaction I see for most gamers, certainly the chatter that happens online.
Yeah, that's a very valid point.
So in effect, you've created rules, but the byproduct is saying by giving these guys rules in this Legends category, you're saying they're not valid, that they're no longer a valid part of the game. Does this affect me directly? No, I don't care. That's fine. This wouldn't, whether they did or didn't do this, I'm still going to play, my converted big mech that I count as a character model that I count as,
right.
Because it's this very unique giant orc that's clearly some weirdo, right? Like there's no doubt he's this odd dude. So I would have done that regardless, but I mean, owning my narrativeness and my grognardiness about my narrativeness these days, like I'm just doing my own thing.
Yeah,
like I'm gonna make it my own. Justin, you also touched on a part of this that I think is like where the real complexity in this issue is for some reason, and I've seen this in these discussions around Legends on various community groups, is this notion of no longer being able to make the hobby your own, this not being able to customize a model, and then having the ability within the validated official stamped rules to say, that's what this guy is and this is how I use him.
Yeah.
I have optimized my Smash Captain to have the following weapons. I'm not seeing a shortage of jump pack Thunderhammer wielding Space Marine commanders out there. And they weren't a thing before. That wasn't a big thing before. And now, gee whiz, golly, they're sure popular. But people, again, are feeling this weird constriction where even Dave Taylor posted about this the other day. He posted about these opening up the fantasy miniatures paint books that were like collection of 80s golden demons.
Yeah.
And there were these random pages of Marines that were the 1,000 Marines and everybody designed their own chapter and how a lot of that's gone away. And in a weird way, Legends feels like a validation of that to me, which is a little weird as somebody who's really narrative to have that feeling of no, there isn't that room for these guys anymore. They don't have a place at the table. And even as somebody who's going to do their own thing, I get that feeling. I understand why people feel that way, even if it's not affecting me. That notion that this thing that I put my $75 in time, love, and energy to putting this chaplain on a motorcycle, why he wouldn't have just used a jetpack or drop pod, nobody knows. But God bless it, he's on a big old hog. I don't. That thing that people wanted to do is feeling like they really need the Dominus Victus blessing of GW to go out and do their thing. And I don't know why it is that Legends became the access point to this feeling, but that's the comments I'm seeing in the wake of Legends announcement is these people going man, if I don't play the way GW wants me to play, then I don't, I either play with their stuff or not at all feelings. And it's weird because they've never been more vocal about here's the tools and choices to make your hobby your own.
Right.
But a kid in the cereal aisle, okay, so how do I
many choices
navigate? That
That's kind of a theme of the
joy.
show, right? So many choices.
So
it's
many.
are
and
hard.
it's an interesting
They are.
perspective too. I mean, some people have said, well, the problem for me is I have these models. I like to play with them. My game store only plays ITC
Won't allow
mission.
it,
And so, I'm kind of stuck now not being able to use this thing because my store. And so I get that impact as well. I think you have discussion. I don't know. I would be very frustrated were I only in an area where all they would play is ITC.
Well, there's a reason
we are who we are.
Garage gamers
Yes.
primarily. We are all I mean, and Justin at liking the ITC and the more
and I'm
gritty
fine with
combat.
that. Yeah.
But you do it you're like, I like playing that here
For sure.
in the Slaughter Hut. Like, you get it the way you want it. And none of us here that are talking on the show have any problem about going, no, it's my hobby and I'm going to do what I want.
Yeah,
but
and
were I in a game store, that's very
I'd
different.
be very, very frustrated because, that goes back to the point of I don't want anybody telling me what I can and can't do in the hobby. I don't think GW's telling me that. I think sometimes maybe I do want to play an ITC mission with just. I mean, let's admit that's probably not the most my go-to, but sure. I mean,
Just to try it out.
but I could do that, and yeah, okay, let's try that, and then okay, now next time let's try
do open war.
Let's
power
do open
deck.
war power level. Let's There's so many variety. I would be very frustrated were I in an environment where, so I could see why somebody like that would get very, very frustrated.
It definitely creates a little bit of a gray area, right? Like,
Yeah.
where are we with this? And on the comment thread, a lot of people were like, is it allowed for match play? Is it not allowed for match play? Like, even though they stated kind of how its intent.
Right.
But
Yeah. Well,
meh.
Yeah, no, it is.
And here's
It's
the
weird. This is another really complex, weird
it is
one.
It's actually, I'm really glad the way you brought that up, because as you brought it up, you really spelled out for me how more complex it is than my initial thinking on it. And it really, truly is. That being said, it is what it is now. And I think the further we get from this point, the less it becomes relevant.
Yeah.
Right.
And Games Workshop knows that, right? Yeah, okay. This is going to cause some frustration. It's going to cause some pain. Next week, we're releasing new chaos stuff.
Here's a new plastic Autar kit, and everybody goes, "What fusion gun warp pack?"
Yeah. Or here's
Or it brings those options back.
Hey, here's
and now that they make a model for it, it's official, right?
Oh,
right.
look, hey, here's plastic
Toying with our emotions.
Here's plastic aspect warriors for all things. People will be like, "What was Legends?"
If you have legend models, don't burn them. They'll probably come back.
I don't think that's the case, honestly.
So my question was, though, were index entries legal in competitive play? Like, if you're playing in a tournament, could you still play with index entries? Because most of these were index options anyways. So does it even make a difference for competitive
it depends,
events?
right? Yeah. I think the ITC did away with index, right?
That was my gut says yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow, if they've done away with index, then why are we even worried about this?
That's what I'm saying.
I mean, yeah. Interesting. Okay. Great points. Thank you, Jody. Thank you, all you guys. But Jody, a light bulb went off in my head as Jody was speaking.
He got a wrinkle.
That's why he's a teacher.
Hey, explaining stuff and ripping off Band-Aids.
All right. Question number 5, our final question, our final question. The other one was, as I have learned, our penultimate question, which is not better than ultimate.
That's great, Carl. What's this question?
All right. We're near the end of 2019.
What?
How does Games Workshop improve upon what many would argue is an incredible year in 2020? So what do you want to see going forward? Not necessarily models or rules, though it could be if you want it to be, but also like corporate and marketing direction. I know there's video stuff that's coming out soon as well. What do you want to see there? Like, where do you want to see Games Workshop kind of go from here as we move into 2020? And let's start with Justin.
I have a couple things I'd really like to see happen. First off, I will start this out by saying, Games Workshop, you are killing it. You're killing my wallet. You're killing my personal time that I have with my family. You're doing a great job.
That's okay, though. I heard old girlfriend's calling you. Baby, don't you like my square bases?
Yeah. Toying with my emotions.
My new silicone square base. Plastic.
Aren't those round bases? Okay.
It's resin. Anyway.
Bags of sand.
Oh, jeez. It's
For your basic.
comforting that I'm not that guy.
Yeah, you are not today. I'm very proud of you, Jason.
Way to go, Jason.
Dropper bottles. Games Workshop, for the love of Christmas and all that is holy. You have an amazing range of paints, and your bottles are absolutely terrible. So looking at you, Games Workshop.
But
dropper
then
bottles.
They'd have to get rid of all those videos where they show somebody dipping in paint,
and
then putting on a palette, and then dipping in water, and then putting that on the palette, and
make a wet palette too. Nobody paints on tiles anymore.
Yeah, can't believe I didn't think of this.
But do they need to make a wet palette? Like
they really don't need to. But I would buy a sweet Games Workshop Aquila,
stamp a GW on it and sell it for 2 times
with a sweet Chaos 8-star on the cut.
I would so ashamed when you said that because I went, yeah, I want one with Aquila, and I'm like, oh my god, I'd totally buy it, and it would be $40. And
I made the Citadel stick, right? So I'll make you guys the Citadel wet palette. Like,
so we'll just buy.
I have the technology.
That's true.
I forgot about that.
That's happening.
Okay, so I think those are great points, especially the dropper bottles. Come on.
Yeah, and the really sad part too is like when you actually, I shouldn't say this, but when you transfer a Games Workshop paint to a dropper bottle, it's like, maybe a quarter full.
Really?
It really is not
the
much.
Volume of paint you get with a GW pod is less than other companies
compared to like a Vallejo or whatever else. Scale 75. Yeah.
Not only are they more expensive, you get less.
Yeah.
That being said, the paints are amazing, and the air range in particular. If you're a vegan,
I gotta tell you, and especially after Kat and Caleb went out to Games Workshop, and then showed them like, here's how we're using airbrushes,
taking the paint right in the pot and shooting it, and they're going, really?
And they're like, so now why don't you transfer that GW airline into this cup on your airbrush? And it's like, oh, well, I spilled half of it,
So this is a weird question / rant. That's, please line up further hate mail at. So the air paints going into dropper bottles, I get, because getting them drip into brush, sure.
Yeah,
right.
I have seen so many posts of people saying, I spent hours and hours and hours transferring my collection over to dropper bottles. Maybe now I'll paint. And I'm like, I don't think the dropper bottles are what we're preventing you from painting.
Probably
so that's
not.
one slice
Probably
of
not.
it. Like if you're willing to do that, but you're not spending time painting, your priorities, your little
or maybe I'm going to
carriage
use
before the
this
horse
color.
situation.
Let me transfer it now. Now I'll go on to paint.
But you've done this, Justin, yes?
Yeah.
Not with all of yours, have you?
I have very few Games Workshop paints that are still in their own.
Oh, cool.
Okay.
Yeah, I've done most of them.
Why?
And Justin paints.
Other than just convenience, is it just
I airbrush a lot.
because you airbrush a lot? That's a fair answer.
Yeah, but I also use a wet palette, so I'm still scooping.
Yeah, which
I'm
I
still
do too. In
dripping
that, like
onto the
both
wet palette.
seconds of like brush to palette that I just made fun of, but like that's what I do, and it's not that big a deal.
Well,
I don't know.
the
It
other
seems
thing-
like a task,
here's
and
the-
like why are people doing this?
The main thing I found too is that if you keep your paints in those containers, they will dry out. They do not. They do not
I
keep
agree. They
as
don't
long.
seal well enough.
Nope. Paint's gonna get behind that little plastic
And it won't
holder.
close
It doesn't
correctly,
close
you know.
properly. They're just not good.
I
mean,
I agree.
I have the original, still a bunch of the original hexagonal ones, and even the round top,
coat
And
to
they
arms.
do stay.
and they do stay.
Yeah, I think the problem. So they obviously invested money in the development of the look of those bottles and all that.
They want them to look like bolter shells.
The new ones don't look like bolter
Yeah,
shells.
they do.
They do. I mean, not as much as the rounded. Those. Oh God, those ones.
plastic,
Oh,
yeah.
I just had a
I think so.
flashback to those. The actual bolter shell
Yeah,
ones.
those ones were cool, but I don't see the bolter shell.
Oh,
Hey, okay.
You don't remember the paint that would
No,
dry?
I'm talking about. I'm talking about the current ones.
I think the current, especially the big suppository. I mean, the bigger ones. Sorry, that's actually a habit. The big ones
look
do
more like
Yes, look
all
more
right,
like.
Let's
Sorry.
squint our eyes and pretend that they look like bolter shells and say that they invested a lot of money to make them look like bolter shells. But it's occurring to me that not only if they replace all that, not only do they have to replace that, they have to replace all the racks that for the stores.
Oh,
that
it'd
they
be
have.
a big-
like there's
a big
it's
deal.
a significant investment for them to change. I'm not
Start
saying it's
with
not.
the airline.
Yeah, for
start
sure.
with the airline
For sure.
and then sell your own packs of 10 packs of empty dropper bottles
Right.
that if you would like to, you can transfer in.
And they say GW on the side.
And they say GW on the side.
with a sticker.
But in the meantime, keep making your labels easily peeled off and put on another container.
'cause that's very handy.
That's very handy.
That's a great point. Okay.
So
All right,
simple.
anything else?
Simple. Yeah, a couple things. Please, for the love of God, can we get new Corn Berserkers? There's a lot of kits, and I know they're going to get to them, but I think there's so many Spaz Marines. I just want to see certain models get updated that are like 20 years old.
Yeah.
That are still extremely prevalent. I don't care if we get a new World Eaters book. Let's get new Corn Berserkers. I don't care if we get an Emperor's Children book. Let's get new Cult models, right? Aspect Warriors. All the things I collect. Can you update those? Thanks.
I was saying.
Well
this feels
done.
really personal.
It is. I'm tired.
The hobby is personal.
And the last but not least, Games Day come back. I know you're coming to Adepticon. We got Golden Demon coming back. Rad.
They do games day out in the UK, but
I know. I want to get.
So you want like 6 of them worldwide, or
just like maybe 1 or 2 in the US? Like do a East Coast, West Coast one. Could be cool. Maybe
they were fun. They were a
fun
good time, man.
Yep.
okay.
And other than that, keep on keeping on. You're killing it.
Josh,
A simple request is just the golden age of gaming 2.0.
just keep doing what you're doing.
Just keep doing it.
Yeah.
For me, really, what I want to see is specialist games. Like it was kind of a gamble for a lot of the games they've come out with, like the re-release of Necromunda, the re-release of Adeptus Titanicus. Clearly, they've hit the ground running. Like, there's a lot of legs behind it, so I just want to see them continue to grow those. The consumers are behind it, so let's keep all the good things coming out for those games.
Yes.
I'm really excited to see what else they come with for both those systems specifically, but everything else, Aeronautica and Blackstone Fortress, whatever, all the other side games. In addition to that, I'm really excited to see what they do in new media. So TV shows, animated things specifically, whether it's cartoon animation or computer animation.
Looks like there's a bunch of everything.
It looks like they're coming out with both. And a big thing to me, I was thinking of like in marketing, I deal with a lot of marketing and a lot of video and photography in my job. And video is so prevalent in this day and age. Like video is everywhere. It's how you're engaging with everything. And having more engaging video out there besides like the Ultramarine movie. I mean, what's the Space Marine YouTube, the guy who's doing his own stuff like that. That is amazing. Like that does so much for the hobby that is not, unofficially
what's
licensed
interesting?
thing.
What's interesting is they hired the guy who did the
Death of Hope?
the Hell's Reach stuff.
Oh, Hell's Reach.
Okay.
To do some of this animation that they're doing. So like they look at the community now. So that guy that does the Space Marine thing, I would be shocked if they don't approach him.
I'm sure he'll get tapped. Yeah, for sure. So having, just world marketing, having such a focus on video right now, and these being a beautiful way of bringing that lore to life, not on the tabletop, but in other ways that can be more engaging, more palatable to people who are not already in the hobby. I think that is going to be the biggest tool that Games Workshop could possibly jump into to bringing new players into the hobby. It's a whole new media outlet there that's going to bring just a ton of people in there into the hobby. But for those of us that are already well established in the hobby, I think it's also going to be an enjoyable aspect to it. Yeah. And this kind of reminded me of I've been watching a lot of the Toys That Made Us on Netflix.
Yeah, such a fun series.
Yeah, it is fun.
And all the great shows from the 80s were predominantly designed to sell a toy range. So if you have shows,
they've kind of gone backed into it.
Right. Yeah. So they're doing it the other way around now, but I think it's still going to have the same effect. Like if they put out good movies or good TV shows or things like that, that's going to engage a new audience. It's going to bring a ton of people into the tabletop.
Start them young.
Absolutely.
Start them
How
young.
many people started this game because of Dawn of War? Like a lot.
Well, I'm sure. Yeah.
A lot. So when you get that kind of penetration in another area, you're definitely going to bring in new
and
blood.
I think they've historically done a pretty good job licensing the video game side of things, which is there's probably more of a direct tie-in to video gamers to tabletop gamers.
For sure.
But just the video as a medium, whether it's TV show, movie, whatever, shorts, I think it's going to engage a
musicals.
Hope maybe.
Underdark. Yeah. Underdark. We're attacking in the Underdark. Sorry.
I'm sure there'll be some very
I would totally go see a
musical.
musical.
I know you would.
40K musical.
Eldar ballerinas pirouetting across.
Harlequins jumping all over the place.
Sisters of Battle in a choir singing.
Cirque de Eldari.
I want the little ammo cherubs like in a chorus.
Oh yeah,
singing it
that'd be
there.
great.
That'd be perfect. So, anyways, I think a new media like that is going to do a lot to bring fresh blood into the hobby.
I don't pull this out, but Grubby on our chat says Noise Marine the musical. No one survives the show.
Yes.
I had to mention that. That's
Didn't
a
you
great
just
comment.
go to that show?
Seriously.
The
Almost
brown
didn't make
the brown
it.
note. What's the brown? The
brown sound.
Yeah.
That's the Nurgle
Jody,
show.
for you.
I'm going to piggyback and go off script here. Josh, a point you brought up is they got to continue to reach out to the community, especially younger gamers. As Matt has really got this Wargamer Club rolling at our school there, and I'm able to pop in, a couple times. They meet a couple times a week, but I'm usually show up late to it and get to participate tangentially. And even in there, I'm stoked that we've got these guys. Man, they are doing an awesome job painting their stuff and really embracing the game and having a good time with it. But I worry that we don't have a bunch of underclassmen in there. These guys are all like juniors and seniors. So it'd be nice to see some of our underclassmen starting to get pulled in. And I think the community outreach in the form of cartoons, the 40K adventures, the young reader series, which is really fun. Those kind of things continuing to pull and expand to the community and offering to the community. And for those of you instantly bristling going, I don't want my Space Marines for kids. They seem to understand that there's different audiences and they've done a really good job with it. So
how has that affected people? Like really, I mean, you remember when they announced those books and people were just raging. Oh, they're just watering down and I'm like, now they've been out for years. How has that affected you? And how has that affected the game? Not a bit.
Yeah. Unless you didn't listen to him and you didn't get to hear David Tennant read you a kid's story because it's freaking rad.
David Tennant's pretty awesome. All right.
Silly.
So I am, though, feeling some system fatigue. A little, so many games, so little time. As you said earlier, Justin, ouch, my wallet, And I also included a note, first worlding it a little bit here. Yeah. Like, thank you for my
giving
glut of
everything
awesomeness.
I want.
I can't drink from the fire hose. I can't do it. I think the challenge ahead for GW is kind of very similar to what Josh said, though, is, Golden Age of Gaming 2.0, but the difference is this time everything's out. Like all the codexes plus some that didn't exist before are out. Yeah. The world has moved forward. Okay, cool. That hasn't happened before. Like, what do we do now that we do have everything in a 40K sense? Where do we go?
Yep.
And I think that's in a weird way kind of daunting and a little bit scary and I've said this before, I don't speed the clock up. Like I am okay to play right where we're at right now in this extra 2 seconds closer to midnight, as to use your phrasing, Carl. I don't start pushing the clock closer and closer and closer. That please don't do that.
No.
But there's a lot to explore.
There's a large galaxy out there to explore. Explore it.
Yeah, right? I'm okay with spending another 20 years exploring this version of the galaxy.
Yeah.
With that said, I'm not sure how they're going to keep everybody interested. Now, I know one of the go-to ways that they keep us interested is with an edition shift. That always works. And it's I don't know about you guys. I mean,
it's coming.
It's coming.
Oh, sure. But I don't think it's going to be the leap from 7 to 8. I think it's going to be all these codexes are going to be valid to use in it.
Right.
Yeah. I don't think their intention is not. Look, we know. Their intention is not to invalidate everything they just did. Literally, their intention is to address some of the rules, things that people not liked, cover, and all
Make
that.
Make it the best version of the game they can.
Make it the best version it can be, but not invalidate everything they just did.
And
I think they don't want to go back and revisit that stuff. I think they want to explore new areas.
Right, and I think the sigils for those of us who've done this for any amount of time are glowing pretty clear that a new edition can't be far off. And I don't know what that number is, but we know everything in the sign says it's coming soon.
Yeah.
But still, once that happens, okay, now what? Like, my brain is at a point where in the past it was always like, oh, this codex could get, and certainly your recommendations for models, Justin, amen, hallelujah, yes, please, times 2. But as far as where do we go in rules wise, or in the world, or what do we explore, or what gets updated? Oh, God, I don't.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Duh. There we go.
New factions. Yeah.
I think, though, the psychic awakening approach, in fact, I remember, I want to say in a show last year at some point, I kind of said this of give us small narrative beats to explore. And I think Vigilus was a good first one.
Yes.
I think the psychic awakening is a nice follow-up. I think this is a way we can see different parts of the world and learn about different factions. I am kind of excited to maybe move away from, Gilman and Abaddon for a while and see some of those other iconic heroes do their thing, and some of the other races shift the camera away from that Imperial Chaos lens a little bit.
This was their impression, or their intention was to make Chaos the main antagonist again this year. I think mission accomplished for the most part. Let's kind of focus the lens elsewhere now. I think that's fair.
I'm my world according to me wish list of no, keep Chaos as your antagonist.
I love it.
But let's see how the Eldari are faring against them and dealing with it. How are the orcs dealing with that? Because
with the rift,
they seem to be very excited about it. Like the more I've read about the orcs and the Cicatrix Maledictum, and they're like, "Oh, Gork's grinning." Wait, what? And they're like, "This is great." And it's like, "Oh, okay, that's a weird take." What's happened with the Tyranids because of it? Like, there's all these questions, and I'm excited to see how those
they can evolve some of that a little bit.
They slowly get.
They can
answered.
have more than one lens. Like right now, the lens is really just focused on Chaos versus Imperium, to the exploring of the modern updated lore that I've done. Like I have no idea what the Necrons are doing right now. I have no idea what the Tyranids are doing. So I would completely agree with that. I would love to see what.
Yep. That's what these Psychic Awakening books are doing, though, too, right? At the moment. So
also, which tells you there's a lot of room to explore still.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a big place.
Yeah.
What about you, sir?
So for me, I agree. This year 2.0, like keep it going. To your point, we don't have a lot of new stuff to introduce. I love the idea of shifting the lens a little bit. I would like to see more of that. I mean, if I were Games Workshop at this point, clearly there's plastic things I need to turn into plastic that will sell. Absolutely. Things that are still sitting there in fine cast, you now release a new plastic version of it. I just bought that new Chaos Sorcerer in plastic because he's phenomenal looking, just absolutely phenomenal looking.
Does he have two heads?
No, just one.
Okay.
Every piece of that kit gets used in the creation of it. Yeah. 9th edition. Yeah. Okay. I'll buy that too and get on with it. I think they should just call it 9th edition. Like I see what they tried to do. They tried to move away. They tried to pull an Apple and like move away from like, this is the version 7 or version 8. Everybody calls it 8th edition. Right. I think they should just say, we're stuck with it. 9th edition it is. Here we go. It helps clear up some of the discussion, I think.
Yep.
How are they going to address 3D printing technology? I sure hope they are thinking about this and they're developing long-term plans. I've got to imagine their CEO now seems very, very smart and very in tune with what's going on. I know they know this is sitting out there and starting to impact things. I'm building terrain based on, we are building terrain based on 3D printing. They're going to have to figure out how they're going to address that and how they're going to make that something that they can compete against. That's, I think, going to be something coming up they're going to have to think about. And then no more systems as well. I'm systemed out, except for Battlefleet Gothic. That'd be okay. A redo of Battlefleet Gothic, streamlining it all and making it good would be awesome.
That's a tall order.
It's coming. I'm telling
sure
you, I guarantee. Yeah. Never going to happen.
If they took the Adeptus Titanicus, if they take the Adeptus Titanicus approach to that with a terminal, couple of ships, I think they could really knock it out and do a beautiful job.
I completely agree. Yeah, I completely agree. And then two last things I should say are give us a digital access to the rules and that kind of thing.
I would love to have a QR code in every book that you purchase for a digital download. And
that would be great. I would even go as far as to say, give us the option of just buying it like I can my Wizards of the Coast books. I could just buy it online and then develop it all from online. I think that would be great. You know what? License a third-party company to do it for you and let them do it, and then they pay you.
Yes.
And that would make my life and everybody's life a lot easier, and I could stop listening to people complain about how much they have to bring things to the table.
I would really
that would
like
definitely
them
stop complaining
to come out with those Age of Sigmar type cards too.
Yeah.
For
they
units,
have come out with some of them, but like fully embrace it, right? Like some of the kids have added them, and it's like,
I mean, I understand. I mean, 40K there is more units per army than there is in AOS, but
still. But AOS you get like a deck, right? You go and buy
it's a deck. Yeah.
And those are pretty good.
The unit entry cards are larger and actually legible.
Yeah.
The second time, the
they're
first
almost like
so
3x5.
Terrible, but
you're good at this wish list stuff, man. Can I just all have what he's having?
Okay, and then
lots of caffeine.
And then last but not least, and this is probably my most controversial thing: start killing off some of the characters.
Oh yes, please. Yeah, I'll back that.
You know,
they're just going to bring them back, like they did with Eldred.
No,
so kill them off and bring them back and change the lore. And
no,
Bucky.
Mean, it's enough is enough.
Bucky's
right?
Dead.
Like the what do they call it? The Rubicon Primaris or whatever it's called. It's supposed to be completely lethal. Like the character dies and then gets brought back to life, and it's only supposed to be like a 10% success rate or something.
So far, they're doing pretty good.
Yeah.
The heroic characters.
As much as I love those characters, like
I like Gilliman. I like some of these characters. It's
Have some
time.
big Game of Thrones plot twists.
It's time to kill them off and make new ones. Move them into the Legends category. And then make new
complicated.
ones. And then make new ones.
Yeah.
Right. Start. The galaxy is massive and huge. Let's explore it. Like not everybody's going to survive all this stuff.
That's really good.
We were talking about this, Steve and myself and Aaron. We've seen some progression like at Forge World where we've seen Cont go from this to Terminator guy to now he's a Dreadnought. Let's move some of these dudes into Dreadnought. Yeah. Make them HQ Dreadnoughts or that kind of stuff.
I volunteer Logan Grimner.
Would his Dreadnought be in a sled?
That's why.
Oh God!
I love skis. I could see you looking at me like, why him?
Power skis.
Yes, he's going to have bionic power skis.
led by
Logan.
sled dogs.
Yeah.
Yes, wolves, sled wolves,
cybernetic sled wolves.
But if it's a box coffin, it could just be a present, like being towed by a sled, and like he just really,
a
really
sarcophagus,
wholesale, yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, I do want to see, if you want to advance the story, have some consequences.
Yeah.
Have some consequences.
The timeline's advanced hundreds of years since the previous edition. Like in 8th edition, they've bumped us up. I don't know.
They say 50 to 500 years.
Yeah. It's like
somewhere in there.
Could be.
They're intentionally vague.
It's been several hundred years, likely more than 300.
Yeah.
It seems like, especially like reading Spear of the Emperor. It's like, it's been a while.
I think so.
They're
vague intentionally.
So. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the intentionally vagueness.
So I mean, I look.
But they need to do something with that character wise.
Yeah.
Like new characters have obviously come up into their own in that time, and old characters.
And I'm not saying,
and they could revisit old ones too that like were in the canon,
Yes.
they were in the lore, and then like, hey, here's a new model.
We don't hear about them anymore.
Yeah,
Kill them off or evolve them or something. But I mean, look, as much as I love like Abaddon and stuff, and he did just get a new model. So look, we're not going to move him to the Legends category at this point. But we do have a bunch of old characters sitting out there that haven't. What are we doing with them? Yeah. Maybe it's time to just say, hey, some of these aren't going to make it. And yes, I have that model and I'm frustrated and it goes to this, but now we've released this new cool plastic guy that's, his cousin. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm not a writer, but Aaron Dembski or Dan Ebnick could turn that into gold. Yeah. And that you'll feel like there's evolution there if there's consequences to these things. Right now, literally every battle doesn't have consequences. Abaddon and
Gilman.
Calgar. Was it Gilman? No, it's Calgar. Met on the field of battle during the Vigilus thing, and then both of them, basically, you got super wounded. Yeah, but no long term.
I thought they were going to kill him.
Walk it off.
I really did. They
just
totally
came out with a new model.
I know, and I would have been like, that would have been so rad in my book if they'd been like, here's a new model.
Imagine how people would flip
in
out.
Legends.
I don't.
Could you imagine Abaddon, the Demon Prince?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
It won't happen.
Yeah.
Deny your chaos, demon princes.
Well,
anyway,
you just said it'll never happen. So
dang it! I blew it.
I'm so excited.
it would be cool if they came out with a
Next
new
week.
Universal Global campaign, though, and
Yep.
even if not in gameplay, but throughout the course of however that plays out, like old characters get killed off. Like it's fine. Just
Yeah, I'm all right with that. Even if it's one I have, I'm fine with that. So anyway, that's kind of my take on it. Sure. All right. Well, that's it. That's all 5 questions. Unfortunately, we weren't able to pull in guests this go around. Let's do this. Let's take a short break. We're going to come back and we'll close out the show. All right, and we are back, and
Yeah.
good show. I liked it.
Lots
Good
of
discussion.
agreeing with each other. A strange amount of agreeing. I tried, but you guys all agreed with me.
Well, you're real smart.
We don't have.
I'm not.
I was actually reading old reviews of the show on iTunes, so let me lead into that. If you liked what you heard, leave us a review on iTunes. If you don't like it, leave us a review on iTunes.
There's plenty of
Let us
podcasts
know.
out there.
don't
Let
listen.
us know. Yeah. But the thing is, if you leave me a bad review on iTunes, I can't interact with you, so I can't find out what didn't you like, and maybe I can adjust things and that kind of thing. I mean, sometimes people bring up really great points. But I was reading old reviews, and somebody was saying, "Oh, the show's not good anymore." Back when Jeff and I don't remember if they said Zach, but when Jeff was on it, he could counterbalance Carl's enthusiasm. And I agree. And these shows in particular, I tend to want a variety of opinions. So I'm fine that people don't agree with me. And, but I think this was one of the few times I've been able to put the show together and like come up with the questions. And I'm like, there's a lot of things here I want to talk about. Yeah. So I think that's valid. And there's new ideas being discussed. So I think that makes it, that makes it valuable. Yeah. But please, if you're liking the show, please, leave us a review on iTunes. We are the highest rated 40K podcast on iTunes, meaning we have 5 stars, but we also have like 800 or something, 850 reviews there. Like no other show even comes close to that. So that's a source of pride for me.
Well deserved.
It's a source of pride for me when you look and you like, here's 5-star, 4-star, 3-star, 2-star, 1-star, and you're like 5-star all the way to the right, and you're like, wow, that's amazing. And I can't believe we've been doing this almost 10 years now. So it's, I did take a year break. So I'm like, go.
Nobody noticed.
We have a Facebook group.
Wait, that was mean. Sorry.
Fair enough.
That came out so wrong.
They probably didn't.
They did.
There's a Facebook group, which is just phenomenal. It continues to be a source of entertainment for myself, and I think for all of us. You can engage with us there. You can talk with us there. You can post stuff that we may mention on the show. Again, point of the show is really to make you feel like a part of our gaming group, and that's what this show is supposed to do. We're supposed to be able to pull people in and hear their opinion, but there you go. So so we got that going on. We've also got our Patreon going on. If you really want to hear more, we're exploring some new ideas and new ways of approaching things. We do a podcast once a month for the Patreon. So there's one extra podcast you can get there. It's about an hour and a half or so of content. Very different format than this. Different folks involved, but any of you are welcome to join at any time.
Sure.
And we also have a campaign that's going on there as well. So that is just going what we're halfway through it at this moment. And for the first time ever, now Imperium and Chaos split in terms of they were tied for the longest time, and Imperium has taken the lead at this point. So still a long way to go. And Tyranids have suddenly come up and are tied with Chaos all of a sudden. So changes in the field there allow for different events that are occurring, and those are worth different points and that kind of thing. Any points that you guys want to bring up as we kind of get close to closing out the show here?
Keep spreading the positivity, like I said earlier at the top of the show, the elites in the elite choice section, it was so cool seeing people reach out and help each other out with tracking down limited edition products. Yeah. That's one way to do it, but just sharing your content and showing, here's what I'm working on. I'm always blown away by the variety of questions that get asked on the community group, and then like how thoughtful the responses tend to be. Yep. And, for my own little soapbox moment is if you are going to respond to somebody's post, take a minute to consider what you're going to say. It's not Twitter. You don't have to limit your number of characters to the most pithy thing you could come up with in 30 seconds. Take a second. Give them if they asked a valid question, which they are, take the time to consider your answer and give them a valid response.
Yeah.
And also read through the comments. There is so much good information out there. I'm constantly blown away by the things both I can learn from what other people are sharing, or just the perspective on how people are enjoying or engaging with the hobby in areas that are very different than mine. So yeah, get involved and continue to grow your community in any way you can. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, there is a set of community standards, a rule that are linked in the Facebook group. I'd highly recommend going in and reading those because it addresses stuff like put thought into your posts. We're not, it is a PG rated area. There are some kids on there. We like to, take that into account as well. So
yeah, Jody.
You can't. I mean,
Josh.
It's okay to swear occasionally if it's in context, if there's a reason for it,
right?
That kind of thing. So,
what's one of my favorite rules is the not double posting.
Even though I do see a lot of it still.
You mean the cross posting to other threads?
Where I posted on one page and then it's here and then it's here. The number of times, and there's a particular group that I get to see beautiful models, but when I have to scroll past pictures of the same beautiful model 6 or 7 times because the person's posted it to every group, man, I love coming to the IC.
It's not
group.
bad when it's one person that does it, but when
Right.
it's multiple people, and all of a sudden your feed is just like full of.
Yeah.
And there is a particular paint group that posts beautiful work, but it is the worst scenario of it because I think there's a lot of commission and professional painters on it. But if it gets posted to that group, I can almost guarantee I'm going to get 4 more posts in a row afterwards. And the independent characters community is very rarely one of those pages, which I absolutely love. So keep following the rules.
It's a tough
Play by the rules.
It's a tough thing to crack down on because I mean I want to encourage people to present their stuff, and a lot of times I'm like, okay, but like at least write something different about it, or give me something to work with.
Well, that's what I'll do. I'll post in. So if you want to work around, I'll post in 1 hour a night, whatever I've been working on. And then when it comes to the IC page, I'll make sure I've done something different, or it's a different angle of the picture, or it's at least something different slightly.
Final product.
all I'm
Or
asking.
I
Work
wait
in
for
progress.
right. And I don't ever post final pictures on the 1 hour a night because it's a progress motivation group. So that's appropriate for that. And then for our groups, when I finish things, I post it on the independent characters page. So
For sure.
I don't know, a way to work around it.
Justin, you got anything you want to add?
I think just everybody needs to keep on keeping on what they're doing, whether it's the community page, Games Workshop. It's Golden Age 2.0, baby. And we're all surfing that wave. And I'm just super excited for 2020, especially with CK Studios and our schedule. We're going to be doing a class here at the Astronomicon, right?
Yeah. We
Should be
have
fun.
8 lucky people who I think it's sold out in like 15 or 20 minutes or something like that. 8 people have signed up for a class here. We have people coming from across the U.S.
That's right. Some of the Midwest knuckleheads is going to show up.
Yeah,
huh?
yeah.
Love it.
Kick down the door.
I think there's 2 or 3 people I don't know.
My good buddy who I used to work with, I haven't seen him in a while, but Greg is coming out. Like I hit him up. I'm like, dude, he's been talking about joining one of my classes for a long time. And I was like, hey, this is coming up, just so you know. And he's like, I signed up.
Cool.
So he's coming.
good.
Yeah. So it's going to be fun.
Yeah, very cool. Josh, anything from you?
No.
Okay. That's easy. That's easy then.
Specialist games, nothing specialist games related. No.
Let me talk about Adeptus Titanicus real quick.
No, let's not. Okay. All right. So, last but not least, I have picked a random person from our Patreon group
Ooh, yeah.
who
Drum
is
roll.
winning the Adeptus Sororitas. Please don't do that on the mic. I really, but no. I got these other things. Hold on. Wait, we got the. No, okay, never mind. Wrong one. We've got so we're giving away the Adeptus Sororitas Sisters of Battle Army set. The new box that came out comes with a codex, bunch of beautiful models, cards, that kind of thing. And I've randomly picked from our Patreon group Jack Spencer. So I have no idea where Jack Spencer lives. Jack, I'll reach out to you directly through Patreon as well. I can message you there. But congratulations. Just send me your address and we'll get this box off.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, man.
And thank you.
The last thing I'll leave us with is our end of year show where we usually do a year in review. Becomes longer and longer each year as Games Workshop has ramped up the pace. But the thing that we do here that I'm proud of is we don't kind of follow what everybody else is doing. And honestly, I think we started that year in review thing before anybody else. But now I notice a lot of shows are kind of doing it. And even Games Workshop themselves like put out a video occasionally where they're putting out all these boxes and this came out and this came out.
Golden Thronies Part 2.
No, I'm never going to do that again.
Though City's never going to do it.
We could use a sound.
Never.
effects, you know. Okay, so but no, we're not going to do it. And the reason we're not going to do that is to be honest, Zach, who was on the show at that time, wrote all those scripts and everything. And he's very talented at doing that. And I'm not going to do that. So, but what we are going to do is we're going to do something a little different this year. I'm going to get input from everybody here on like several questions, but like, what was your favorite releases of the year? What did you do the most of, that kind of thing? And we'll piece together a show like that in the coming weeks. So expect something a little different, but I think it'll be entertaining. I think it'll be fun. So
cool.
Okay. With all that being said, thank you so much for joining us for episode 198 of the Independent Characters. This is Carl.
This is Jody.
This is Jason.
This is Josh.
You keep saying this is Jason, and people are going to think Justin was fired from the show again.
Wait,
spread the lies.
He wasn't?
Well, either way, we are coming to you from the Astronomicon, where all of your opinions are relevant,
where there's still time to make your holiday wishes come true.
Aw.
And options are scary. Don't be scared.
And we are in the golden age of gaming.
That was smooth. Well done, gentlemen. Thank you so much. This episode of The Independent Characters is protected by the Creative Commons license. If you have further questions as to its use, you can find information on the front page at theindependentcharacters.com.